Chapter 400. Will there be trouble? Qin Ran actually knew that Qin Sheng was not willing to mingle in this kind of social circle. However, he had to inherit Qin Chang'an's career, pay New Year's greetings to the Qin family's old friends, and face these tycoons and juniors who came to pay New Year's greetings to Qin Chang'an. When he returned to the Qin family, he had to face these things. There was no way to avoid them. You could only choose to accept them. It was as simple as that. Therefore, since Qin Chang'an had announced Qin Sheng's identity to the world, if Qin Sheng stood still, there would naturally be people who would approach him and pull him into the so-called big and small circles one after another. There were good and bad people among these people. Qin Sheng definitely wouldn't know for a while. Maybe time would reveal a person's heart, or maybe he would only understand after suffering a few losses. Qin Sheng might not care about it, but of course he cared about it. He didn't want his brother to be bullied. Therefore, she took Qin Sheng into her circle first. At least she knew the good and bad people of these friends. In this way, they could help Qin Sheng avoid some detours in the future. The place where Qin Ran took Qin Sheng to today was a small gathering. This kind of gathering could not be organized by just one or two people. It was organized by the core figures of a few small circles. After all, at their age, most people had already stepped on the right track in their lives and needed a lot of resources. Therefore, this kind of gathering was held. The party wasn't the kind of place where young kids would casually drag their friends to create a mess. It was filled with second-generation rich kids, peripheral models, and so-called stars. It seemed lively, but in fact, it was meaningless. Compared to normal days, the New Year's Day was the biggest opportunity, because most of these young people who went out of Sijio City would come back for the new year. Some of them had small achievements in their careers, plus the power of their families. They would definitely have a bright future in the business world. Some of them had entered the official career. They were either trained in ministries or held local posts. The worst among them was at least at the deputy division level. Those who did well were already in their 30s. To be able to have such achievements at such a young age, their own strength was one thing, but which one of them did not have a shocking background? Those who did business needed benefits, and those who entered the official career needed political achievements. This kind of binding, where everyone took what they needed, often led to unexpected gains. After all, there were too many examples in these years. However, this threshold was extraordinarily high. Not everyone could come here. Because many people had special identities, it was impossible for them to choose a place that was too eye-catching. The place was different every year. This year, they chose a boutique hotel that looked ordinary, but was actually not ordinary. It was just that it was not open to the public these 2 days. After all, the boss was a young man. Actually, Qin Ran and Qin Sheng were late. At this moment, the others had already arrived. After all, Qin Ran was a little tired today. It was too strenuous for her to talk to those uncles, grandfathers, and grandmothers. She had to be careful, for fear that she might say something wrong and offend them. If it were not for Ma Weiyang's continuous phone calls, she would have stayed at home to accompany Qin Sheng to watch TV for a while. Moreover, she would have to work for another day tomorrow. She would have to go to Shanghai the day after tomorrow, which would be too much for her. Qin Ran was still driving the Audi A6L. She did not need to be wary of anything. Those in the system had to be careful. They either took a taxi, asked someone to send them, or only dared to drive an ordinary car. After parking the car at the entrance of the hotel, Qin Ran said to Qin Sheng, "After entering the hotel, you go to find Ma Wei and the others first. I will come later. Otherwise, you will have to accompany me to deal with those boring people." Of course, Qin Ran's identity was the target of many people. With Qin Chang'an's influence in the business world, who would not be willing to rope her in? Of course, Qin Sheng understood what his sister meant. He nodded with a smile and followed her arrangement. At the entrance of the hotel, there was a staff in charge of reception. After checking Qin Ran's identity, they let her in. They did not ask about Qin Sheng's identity, because every invited member could bring a companion with them. There was no need to ask about their identity. After entering the hotel, Qin Ran asked Qin Sheng to take the elevator first. She waited in the lobby for a while. After Qin Sheng reached the floor, she took another elevator to go up. After all, This was a boutique hotel. The decoration style was relatively simple and elegant. After Qin Sheng arrived at the floor where the restaurant was, he followed the sign and walked there. This was the hotel's Western restaurant. This time, it was specially renovated for the party. The inside was divided into large and small areas. In the middle, there were all kinds of wine and food. There was no messy dance floor or stage, and no host would give a speech, etc. It was just a place for people to get to know each other and talk about things. If they did not want to stay, they could leave. There were no rules. This was also the reason why people were willing to come. There were 2 security guards standing at the entrance of the restaurant. Obviously, they were not ordinary security guards. They should be specially hired. When Qin Sheng walked to the door, he thought he would be checked again. Unexpectedly, the 2 security guards did not change their expressions. Qin Sheng smiled awkwardly and went in. The restaurant was not big, but at this time, there were dozens of people in it. There were men and women. Everyone was dressed in ordinary and simple clothes. There was no requirement for them to wear formal clothes or evening gowns. People were either standing in the middle area and talking and laughing, or sitting in groups on the seats on both sides, laughing and cursing. There were also 2 people sitting alone in the corner, talking in a low voice with serious expressions. Qin Sheng stood at the door and looked around casually. He was not curious about this kind of scene. He was just looking for Ma Weiyang and the others. After a while, he found them sitting on the right side by the window. There were 2 circular sofas with 7 or 8 men and women sitting there. It was the liveliest place here. However, Qin Sheng only knew Ma Weiyang, Fan Deji, and Yin Hao. Then, to Qin Sheng's surprise, the young man he met in the Song family in the morning was also here. When Qin Sheng came out of the Song family, he learned from his sister that the young man was Song Husheng, Song Ruyu's cousin. Qin Sheng frowned slightly. He was not in a hurry to go over. He subconsciously looked for Song Ruyu, but then he could not help laughing. It seemed that Song Ruyu, a woman with such temperament, would not appear here. Otherwise, she would really be out of place. After letting out a sigh, Qin Sheng walked over slowly. Along the way, no one talked to Qin Sheng. They just looked at him up and down. After all, they had never seen this man before. Then they guessed his identity. There was an unwritten rule here, which was that no one would disturb a friend they did not know, unless a friend introduced them to each other. When Qin Sheng walked to Ma Weiyang's side, some people became more and more confused. Who was this man? How could he know those people? He was not simple. Fan Deji was facing Qin Sheng and saw him first. He smiled and waved his hand to say hello. "Little Sheng, you are here." Hearing Fan Deji's words, Ma Weiyang turned around subconsciously. When she saw Qin Sheng, she immediately got up and rushed to Qin Sheng. She gave him a big hug and said coquettishly, "Oh, little Sheng, I missed you so much. Why did you come so late?" Qin Sheng was a little embarrassed. Except for Fan Deji and Yin Hao who knew Qin Sheng, the others who did not know Qin Sheng were quite puzzled. They did not know who this little Sheng was. How could Ma Weiyang treat him in such a way? This was really enviable. Of course, this also included the outsiders who had been staring at Qin Sheng or here. Ma Weiyang was a young married woman. Not to mention her temperament. Her breasts and figure were enough to make people have a nosebleed. As a hot-blooded young man, Qin Sheng could not stand it anymore. He quickly let go of Ma Weiyang and said, "Sister Ponytail, you are strangling me." Ma Weiyang let go of Qin Sheng and said angrily, "You heartless man. Others don't even have this kind of treatment. How can you be so ungrateful?" Okay. I was wrong, okay? Qin Sheng begged helplessly. At this time, Fan Deji asked, "Why don't I see your sister?" Qin Sheng turned to the door and happened to see his sister coming in. He chuckled and said, "Isn't she behind?" As soon as she came in, many friends who knew her went up to greet her. Qin Sheng then understood why his sister let him come in first. Qin Sheng smiled and nodded to Yin Hao. At this time, Ma Weiyang took Qin Sheng's arm and said to Song Husheng and the others, "Let me introduce this handsome guy to you. He is I know, I've seen him before. He is the eldest young master of the Qin family, Qin Rant's biological brother." Song Husheng interrupted before Ma Weiyang finished her introduction. After hearing Song Husheng's words, The others who did not know Qin Sheng were instantly stunned and stared at him. They did not expect this young man to be such a person. This was big news. Ma Weiyang was quite surprised and said, "Damn, Lao Song, how did you know?" Oh, it seems that someone is still unwilling to give up. After all, Qin Sheng almost became your brother-in-law. Ma Weiyang, no one will think that you are mute if you don't speak. Song Hushing stared at Ma Weiyang and said angrily. Ma Weiyang said disapprovingly, "Tut, tut, tut, you don't even allow people to make jokes. So boring. Brother Song, we meet again." At this time, Qin Sheng took the initiative to greet Song Hushing. After all, the Qin family and the Song family were not simple. Of course, Qin Sheng had to be polite. Song Hushing smiled and stood up. "I didn't expect it to be so fast, and I didn't expect it to be here. You are so fast." These words were a bit harsh. Qin Sheng could understand it, no matter how stupid he was. He squinted and said, "What do you mean by this, Brother Song?" The conversation between the two made others feel a bit strange. Why was there a bit of smell of gunpowder? Song Hushing did not bother to explain to Qin Sheng at all. He directly stood up and left, because if he did not leave, Qin Ran would come over. He did not want to face Qin Ran. In Song Hushing's eyes, Qin Sheng and he were not at the same level at all. Moreover, because of Ruyu, Song Hushing was very disgusted with Qin Ran. He even scolded her secretly. "Didn't you disappear for more than 20 years? Why didn't you die outside? Why did you show up at this time?" Song Hushing just left like this, followed by two people. Because they were quite gossipy, they wanted to ask Song Hushing about Qin Sheng. This would definitely be a topic to chat with their friends tomorrow. Qin Sheng smiled bitterly and had no choice but to sit down with Ma Weiyang, who came back to her senses. She was puzzled and said, "Little Sheng, when did you offend Song Hushing? Why does he speak so strangely?" "Sister Ponytail, I also want to know." Qin Sheng was speechless. Ma Weiyang said fiercely, "It's okay. I will help you vent your anger later. Song Hushing is a bit too much." Qin Sheng casually said that it was okay to let Ma Weiyang calm down. At this time, Fantaji hurriedly changed the topic and introduced Qin Sheng to other friends. Just now, everyone already knew Qin Sheng's identity. After all, he was Qin Ran's brother. Of course, they would treat him politely. Everyone laughed, drank, and chatted. The others were quite curious about Qin Sheng, and the topics they talked about were basically about Qin Sheng. However, with Ma Weiyang and Fantaji's help, Qin Sheng was quite relaxed. Otherwise, he would have to recount those old stories again. It was not easy for Qin Ran to walk along the way. Basically, after dealing with one group of people, another group would immediately surround him. Of course, Qin Ran had to give face to them. After all, everyone knew each other, and many of them had cooperated with each other. They could only smile and chat for a while. Therefore, when Qin Ran arrived here, nearly 20 minutes had passed. When Qin Ran walked over, Qin Sheng was frowning and staring at a few people not far away, especially a man among them. Qin Ran waved her hand in front of Qin Sheng's eyes and asked confusedly, "What are you looking at? Whose girl are you attracted to?" Qin Sheng suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Sister, will there be trouble if we make trouble here?" Chapter 401. Chapter 400. Chapter 400 Unbearable. There is only one update today. I've been busy for a whole day. If I have the ability, I'll definitely do 2 updates. I hope you can understand. Qin Ran was taken aback by Qin Sheng's sudden words. She did not know the reason behind it. Could it be that he had met someone who had a grudge against him, or had bullied him before? Qin Ran did not dare to say that there would not be any trouble. It was not that she was not confident, but that today's gathering was not simple. There were many rich playboys with hidden talents, and many weirdos with prominent family backgrounds who kept a low profile. Facing most of the people here, Qin Ran was really not afraid that Qin Sheng would cause any trouble. It was just that it would be a little tricky to deal with it. If Qin Sheng provoked a small group of people, it would depend on the reason. For example, if they had bullied Qin Sheng before, Qin Ran would have a reason to support Qin Sheng. At least it was reasonable. Therefore, Qin Ran had to know the reason first. Qin Ran was still smiling. She looked at Qin Sheng, who looked uncertain and asked, "What's wrong? You met someone who bullied you before, and you want me to help you vent your anger?" Qin Ran did not know whether to laugh or cry at Qin Sheng's answer. His character was exactly the same as his father's, because he said, "No, I just don't like some people." For a moment, Qin Ran did not know how to respond to his words. Of course, she would not reprimand him, but she felt that he was not the kind of person who was arrogant and domineering. There must be a reason. Hence, she said, "Then you have to give me a reason. I feel that he is bullying my friend," Qin Sheng said honestly. Qin Ran finally understood. She sighed and said, "Oh, I see. Then I have to know who you are unhappy with and what kind of trouble you want to cause. After all, some people today are really not simple. It's not that we don't dare to provoke them. It's just that it's a little troublesome for me to clean up after them." "Ha ha ha, sister, look at how scared you are. Is your brother a person who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth? Of course, I have to know whether I can provoke them or not. If I can't, I definitely won't court death. Even if I can, I will have a sense of propriety and reason with them first. If I can't reason with them, then I will see whose fist is harder." Qin Sheng laughed in a low voice. Qin Sheng made it sound simple, but Qin Ran was shocked. She glared at Qin Sheng and said, "You are making fun of me on purpose. Now tell me, who do you dislike, so that I can tell you whether you can provoke them or not?" Qin Sheng pointed at the group of people who were only 5 meters away from them and said, "The one on the right who doesn't look well is my friend. The woman beside him, I don't know who she is. She should be his girlfriend or friend. I just don't like the 2 men and the woman in front of him." Anyone could tell that Qin Sheng's friend had been bullied because his face was very ugly. The woman next to him looked angry, while the 2 men opposite them and a not-so-pretty woman had complacent smiles on their faces. Their eyes were full of disdain. Qin Ran squinted her eyes and looked at the group of people not far away from her. Qin Ran said meaningfully, "I don't know your friend. I know the woman beside him, but I don't have much contact with her. As for the 2 men on the opposite side, I know them. They're the ones who have just entered this circle. I don't know that woman, but I think she is at the same level as them." Qin Sheng could not wait to go straight to the point. "Do you dare to provoke them or not? Go ahead. I will support you," Qin Ran said confidently. She felt lucky that the people Qin Sheng wanted to provoke were not the troublesome ones. Hearing this, Qin Sheng stood up and walked over without hesitation. After Qin Sheng stood up and left, Ma Weiyang, who did not pay attention to the Qin siblings, asked confusedly, "Where's Qin Sheng going? What were you talking about just now?" Qin Ran explained with a smile, "Just wait and watch the fun. In a while, you and I may have to support Qin Sheng. Let's see whether those people are smart or not." Ma Weiyang was confused and did not know what she meant. Qin Ran did not explain either. She just stared at them. Among the group of people not far away, the man who was being bullied was none other than Qin Sheng's dormitory mate, Chao Yufeng, who ranked second in the dormitory. The woman standing next to him was his newly engaged fiancée. Otherwise, Qin Sheng wouldn't have wanted to stand up for someone he knew just because he had nothing better to do. After all, no matter how stupid he was, he knew that it was not appropriate to make trouble here. However, Qin Sheng could ignore others, but he could not ignore this brother who had been with him for 4 years in the university. After all, they had skipped classes together, drank together, and fought together. After all, when he returned to Shanghai, this man knew it and directly rushed from Beijing to Shanghai from thousands of miles away, just to see him and get drunk with him. Then he hurried back to Beijing the next day. If there was no true love between them, with this man's calm character, how could he do such an impulsive thing? Therefore, no matter whether he could provoke him or not, Qin Sheng would not flinch. He would definitely stand by his side and go through thick and thin with him. If anything happened, they would shoulder it together. After all, he could not watch him being bullied by others. After all, there were 4 people in the dormitory who fought and made trouble in the university. It did not occur to Qin Sheng that he would meet Lao Er here, let alone in such a situation. This should be the second time he met Lao Er since he returned to Shanghai. Of course, it was mainly because of him. After all, he always disappeared for no reason. However, Lao Chao had been contacting him and often called him. He also knew that Lao Chao was too busy with work. Otherwise, he would have gone to Yangtze River Delta to find them. After all, he knew that Lao Chao was a man who wanted to go further, so he worked so hard. The man standing opposite Lao Chao said sarcastically, "Lao Chao, I was wondering why I met you here. It turns out that you came here with the help of a woman." Hearing this, Lao Chao's face fell. However, he could not afford to offend the man opposite him. It did not occur to him that he would meet this so-called rival in love here. If he had known this, he would definitely not have come. "Du Xian, what do you mean? Are you looking for trouble on purpose?" Lao Chao did not say anything, but his fiancée beside him could not help but say, of course, she would not watch her man being bullied. The man called Du Xian said happily, "Xiao Xiao, I learned that you were engaged a few days ago. I thought that your family had chosen a Mr. Right for you. It was not until later that I knew it was him. You don't know how sorry I am for you." Du Xian's friend echoed and said, "Exactly. Xiao Xiao, based on your family background, you should find a man of equal social status. Otherwise, how could he be worthy of you? It did not occur to me that you found such a man." The woman called Xiao Xiao snorted and said, "Dingwen, what kind of man I like has nothing to do with you. You are really a salty person." At this time, the beautiful woman, who was standing beside Du Xian and holding his arm tightly, looked at Chao Yufeng. A trace of gloominess and complacency flashed across her eyes as she said, "It did not occur to me that you are such a man. This society is really realistic. It is not until today that I know why you chose her instead of me. It is because I am too ordinary. She can help you get what you want. I misjudged you before." Upon hearing this, Xiao Xiao said impolitely, "It is not your turn to speak here." The beautiful woman was not afraid at all. After all, she was Du Xian's girlfriend. Du Xian would definitely protect her. As expected, Du Xian said unhappily, "Xiao Xiao, what do you mean by this? Can't you allow my girlfriend to complain a little? Should we all be like the man you found? He does not even dare to say anything. Don't you think he is a good-for-nothing?" The woman called Xiao Xiao looked at her man and felt somewhat sorry for him. She knew that he was not really a good-for-nothing. He just did not want to make trouble. At this time, after hesitating for a while, Chao Yufeng replied to the beautiful woman, "If I like her, I like her. If I don't like her, I don't like her. That is all. If you did this to take revenge on me, I could understand. But it is not worth it for you." Upon hearing this, the beautiful woman seemed to have been poked in her sore spot. She said angrily, "Chao Yufeng, what qualifications do you have to say that to me? Do you dare to say that you did not choose Luo Xiao for your future?" Chao Yufeng shook his head and smiled bitterly. He stared at the beautiful woman and said, "I dare to say that I did not. Do you dare to say that you really like Du Xian?" Upon hearing this, the smile on the beautiful woman's face disappeared instantly. She bit her lips and did not say anything. That was because she knew that this man was definitely not lying. Originally, she had thought that he had chosen Luo Xiao for his future. At least, she could accept this reason. However, the real answer was like this. She found it hard to accept it at the moment. It was true that she had done this to take revenge on Chao Yufeng. In the end, she had agreed to Du Xian, who had been pursuing her all the time. It was because Chao Yufeng was Du Xian's sworn enemy, be it in career or in love. However, Chao Yufeng did not dare to offend Du Xian because of his background. She had liked Chao Yufeng for 2 years. She had done everything that she could. However, she could not move Chao Yufeng. Since she could not get him, she would destroy him. "Chao Yufeng, you chose Luo Xiao and want to climb higher. In that case, I would find your enemy and break your sweet dream." Upon hearing what Chao Yufeng had said, Luo Xiao felt touched and sweet in her heart. She did not regret choosing Chao Yufeng at all, although she had doubted him before. After all, many of her friends had said so. She was willing to believe in him completely today. Originally, Du Xian hated Chao Yufeng because Chao Yufeng was more capable than him in his work unit and was valued by the leader. In terms of love, he was a complete loser. Since the woman he liked Chao Yufeng, how could he not hate Chao Yufeng? Of course, he knew that Kai Han had chosen him to take revenge on Chao Yufeng. This made him hate Qiao Yufeng even more. As a result, Du Xian directly grabbed Qiao Yufeng's collar and said, "Qiao Yufeng, I dare you to say that again." "Do I need to say it again?" "Du Xian, you know it better than me." Qiao Yufeng answered Du Xian without flinching. In the beginning, he had not been willing to make trouble because he knew what kind of place this was. If he really made trouble, not only would he suffer losses, but he would also bring trouble to Xiao Xiao. However, Qiao Yufeng did not care about that anymore. He did not want others to say that the man Luo Xiao had chosen was a good-for-nothing. He did not care about how others thought of him. However, he cared about how others thought of Luo Xiao. Hardly had Qiao Yufeng finished his words when Du Xian's fist smashed into Qiao Yufeng's face. Qiao Yufeng was hit so hard that he took several steps back. However, he just looked at Qiao Yufeng smilingly, as if he was looking at a pitiful loser. Qiao Yufeng did not fight back. He could bear this punch. However, if Du Xian was aggressive, he would definitely not bear it. However, at this moment, a man who had walked over happened to witness this scene. The look on his face was extremely terrible. Qiao Yufeng could bear it, but he could not. As a result, he said playfully, "Lao Air, when did you become so cowardly? You don't even dare to fight back after being beaten by others." Chapter 402. Chapter 401. Introduction. What explanation? In fact, Qin Sheng was not very clear about Qiao Yufeng's family background. He only knew that all his family members were civil servants with a strong background. Therefore, after graduation, he took the civil servant exam and entered the system. Now, he was doing quite well. During his 4 years in college, Qiao Yufeng had always kept a low profile and looked ordinary. He was not as cynical as Xia Ding, nor was he like Yu Kefi, who was not very eye-catching but could be seen everywhere that he was not simple. Often, Xia Ding and Yu Kefi made trouble outside, while Qin Sheng and Qiao Yufeng cleaned up the mess. No matter what happened to the 4 people in the dormitory, no one would drop the ball. In recent years, Qin Sheng's life was quite rough. Except for meeting Xia Ding often, he only met Qiao Yufeng and Yu Kefi a few times. However, they did not stop contacting each other. Their relationship was still there. They were the kind of brothers who did not contact each other for no reason. When Qin Sheng saw Qiao Yufeng just now, he was more or less surprised. It did not occur to him that he would meet him here. Later, he figured it out. After all, Qiao Yufeng was also from Beijing, and all his family members were civil servants. His background might be deeper than he had imagined. Qin Sheng did not know what conflict Lao Chao had with them. However, he did not care about this at this moment. Of course, he stood on Qiao Yufeng's side without any reason. However, he did not expect that before he walked over, that man directly hit him. He was so aggressive that Qin Sheng could not help but feel annoyed. Anyway, his sister had said that they could do whatever they wanted, which meant that he was not a powerful man. Therefore, Qin Sheng was not worried at all. Moreover, it was that man who hit him first. He was just confused that Lao Chao did not dare to fight back when he was hit, which made Qin Sheng feel a little aggrieved. The movement here had attracted everyone's attention. After all, it was the first time that someone dared to hit him here. Qiao Yufeng looked at Qin Sheng, who was walking over slowly. The expression on his face was extremely complicated. Obviously, he could not believe that he would meet Qin Sheng here. It was too incredible. After all, Qiao Yufeng stayed in the system. After a short absent-mindedness, he returned to normal. However, he sighed with emotion and did not know what to say to Qin Sheng. "Big brother, why are you here?" Qiao Yufeng asked uneasily. After all, he had been introduced to different friends by Luo Xiao and did not notice Qin Sheng at all. Qin Sheng squinted and said, "This is not the time to catch up." Qin Sheng turned around and looked at Du Xian, who had made a move. He said with great interest, "You actually dare to make a move here. It seems that your background is not simple. Yo, what's wrong? You want to stand up for him?" Du Xian stared at Qin Sheng and said thoughtfully. He had seen most of the people here, especially those whose family backgrounds were more illustrious than theirs. However, he had never seen Qin Sheng before. Consequently, he thought that Qin Sheng was more or less like Qiao Yufeng, who had been brought here by others. After all, Qiao Yufeng called him Big Brother. Qin Sheng took 2 steps forward and said directly to Du Xian, "No, I just don't like you." After Qin Sheng finished his words, he took action without any warning and kicked Du Xian's abdomen, making Du Xian fly out directly and fall heavily on the ground. He did not want to talk nonsense anymore. After all, Du Xian was already his opponent, so he did not need to reason with him. This scene shocked all the people who had been paying attention to this side. It did not occur to them that the conflict would become more and more intense. Some people had already started to walk over. Many of them were Du Xian's friends and the key figures in a circle. When Du Xian made his move, Qin Ran already knew the trend of this matter. It did not occur to her that Du Xian would dare to make a move here. Was he fearless, or did he not take Qin Sheng's friends seriously at all? Qin Ran knew Qin Sheng's temper. In addition, she had given him the bottom line just now. Consequently, he would definitely fight back without hesitation. As she had expected, Qin Sheng made a move last time without saying a word. Ma Weiyang had been staring at the other side. After seeing this scene, she was not worried at all. Instead, she said excitedly, F***CK. What a beautiful kick. It was clean and neat. It did not occur to me that our brother could be so handsome when he was fighting. Qin Ran had long been accustomed to Ma Weiyang's character of watching the fun. Anyway, no one dared to provoke her casually. She could only bully others. Of course, when she encountered those who could not be provoked, she would also keep a low profile. Fan Deji and Yin Hao frowned. They did not know why the fight had started. They asked in a hurry, "What's going on?" "The man who was beaten just now is Qin Sheng's friend," Qin Ran said truthfully. It could be considered as telling others that it was others who had made the move first. Even if there was a conflict later, they were in the right. This was very important. At this time, Qin Ran and the others had already noticed that the people in Du Xian's circle were all rushing to the center of the incident. Of course, they also had to support Qin Sheng. They stood up and walked over at the same time. In the center of the conflict, Du Xian had been sent flying by Qin Sheng's kick. Qiao Yufeng was so scared that his face turned pale. He stopped Qin Sheng in a hurry and said, "Big brother, this is not the place to make trouble." Qin Sheng said disapprovingly, "If anything happens, I will take responsibility." He did not take Qiao Yufeng's words seriously at all. It did not occur to Du Xian's best friend, Ding Wen, that this man in front of him dared to beat Du Xian. He rushed toward Qin Sheng without thinking. Even if he was beaten, he could not sit back and do nothing. Otherwise, his relationship with Du Xian would not be good in the future. Even in the circle, he would be looked down upon. "Big brother, watch out." Seeing Ding Wen rushing over, Qiao Yufeng pushed Qin Sheng away in a hurry. However, he was not prepared at all. He was kicked on the shoulder by Ding Wen and staggered to the right several steps. If Luo Xiao had not supported him in a hurry, he would have almost fallen down. Ding Wen, who had taken advantage of Qin Sheng, became more vigorous. He took the opportunity to punch Qin Sheng, who was beside him. Qin Sheng was a bit angry. He actually dared to make a sneak attack. He was really reckless. Consequently, Qin Sheng grabbed Ding Wen's arm. It was not until this moment that Ding Wen realized from the man's attack and the strength that this man was a martial artist. However, it was too late. Qin Sheng's fist had hit his abdomen. Ding Wen grimaced in pain. Following that, Qin Sheng hit him with his knee and sent him flying backward. Like Du Xian, he lay on the ground. Du Xian's girlfriend, Kai Han, had long been frightened by the unexpected situation. She stood there in a daze and did not know what to do. After a long while, she came to herself and ran toward Du Xian in a hurry. Compared to Du Xian, Luo Xiao was quite calm, although she said that she was worried. She quickly thought about the storm that might be caused by this incident, because Du Xian and Ding Wen were not ordinary people. Moreover, they were fighting and making trouble here. She did not know the identity of the big brother mentioned by Qiao Yufeng. At least, she had never seen him before. However, she had to consider the worst result. Could she help Qiao Yufeng and his big brother to get out of trouble? Several key figures of Du Xian and Ding Wen's circle finally arrived. They said with a gloomy look, "How dare you make trouble here? You're really bold." After all, their friends, Du Xian and Ding Wen, were still lying on the ground. Qin Sheng replied without flinching. I think we all saw who started the fight first. If you don't know, you can play the surveillance video and have a look. Another man stood up and snorted as he said, Is this the reason why you hurt them? Qin Sheng squinted as he said, So you mean that you will help your relatives, but not reason? None of these people had seen Qin Sheng before. Consequently, they did not take Qin Sheng seriously at all. After all, they had been surrounded by all kinds of people and had not noticed Qin Sheng. Moreover, Qin Sheng had just arrived not long ago. So what? A man, who walked toward Du Xian and Ding Wen, spoke again. It was obvious that he wanted to support Du Xian and Ding Wen this time. After all, their families had a good relationship, and they were all in the same system. At this time, Qin Ran, Ma Weiyang, and the others walked over. Ma Weiyang clapped her hands and sneered. So what if it is true? I'd like to see how young Master Lu will side with his family over reason. Qin Ran walked up to Qin Sheng, held his hand, and asked, Are you all right? Qin Sheng smiled awkwardly. He glanced at Qiao Yufeng, whose face was a little swollen by his side, and said, I'm fine. It's just that my friend was injured. At this moment, the focus of the conflict was no longer Qin Sheng, Qiao Yufeng, Du Xian, and Ding Wen. Instead, it was the conflict between the two circles. It had not occurred to Qiao Yufeng that this matter would be so serious. He looked at Qin Sheng with confusion and worry in his eyes. Qin Ran patted Qiao Yufeng's shoulder as she said with a smile, Don't worry, the sky will not collapse. Qiao Yufeng did not know Qin Ran, Ma Weiyang, and the others. However, Luo Xiao did not have any contact with them. After all, her family background was nothing in front of this group of people. However, a moment ago, Luo Xiao had been worried about how to deal with this matter, which was already a big trouble for her. But now, Luo Xiao did not have to worry about it anymore. She was just curious about the background of Qiao Yufeng's boss. It seemed that he was quite familiar with this group of people. The man who had said, So what? A moment ago was a little timid. However, he still braced himself and said, Sister Ponytail, what do you mean? Are you going to support him? Ma Weiyang stared at him and said in an unfriendly tone, My name is Ma Weiyang. How dare you call me Ponytail? Upon hearing this, Qin Sheng had to give Sister Ponytail a thumbs up. He liked her temper. She would help her relatives, but not reason. Since Ma Weiyang had already stood up, Qin Ran also stood up and said, Since you want to help your relatives, but not reason, fine. Let's talk about reason. This is my brother Qin Sheng. How do you want to help them? Though Fan Deji, Yin Hao, and the others did not say anything, they all stood behind Qin Sheng without hesitation and stared at the group of people opposite them angrily. Their meaning was obvious. If you want to make trouble, let's see who is more powerful. If the younger ones are not good enough, let's use the older ones. At this moment, an elegant man walked to the front of Du Xian's group of people and said with a smile, Qin Ran, you are being unreasonable. Everyone knows that you're the only daughter in your family. When did you have a younger brother? Even if you want to help him, you should not help him in this way, right? Du Xian and Ding Wen had already been helped to stand up. However, they looked pretty terrible. After all, Qin Sheng's attack was much heavier than theirs. In the beginning, when they saw that their brothers from their circle had arrived, Du Xian and Ding Wen had planned to stand up and make trouble again. However, it did not occur to them that Ma Weiyang, Qin Ran, and the others would support this man, which made them lose their confidence instantly. However, when they saw the man in front of them, they became confident again. Ma Weiyang said sarcastically, Well, I was wondering who it was. It turns out that it is Director Chen. Here comes the backbone. However, does the Qin family still need to report to you, Director Chen? You think too highly of yourself, don't you? Ma Weiyang, Qin Ran, I don't care about the relationship between this man and you. Though Du Xian was wrong to attack first, shouldn't this man give us an explanation since he was so heavy-handed? The man, who was called Director Chen, said unhappily. This was related to the dignity of their circle. He would never flinch. At this moment, this place had become the focus of all the people present. Everyone began to gather here, wanting to know what had happened. At this moment, a man also walked over. He was Song Hesheng. Chapter 4:03. The peacemaker, every circle had its core figures. There might be several of them, or there might be 2 or 3 of them. For example, the several people who had supported Du Xian and Ding one at the beginning were the core figures of their circle. Du Xian and Ding one were just marginal figures. However, there was only one core figure in every circle. Once there was one more core figure, the circle would inevitably be divided into 2 smaller circles. The core figure of Du Xian's circle was Chun Taihe. Ma Weiyang called him Director Chun. Although it was meant to be sarcastic, it was obvious that Chun Taihe had become a department-level cadre at the age of 30. As for his status as a director or deputy director, nobody knew. With a prominent family background and a good ability, it was not an exaggeration for him to become the core figure of the circle. Although it was said that Chun Taihe would help his relatives, but not reason. If he was unreasonable, he could not stand to make trouble in such a place. There was a world of difference between being reasonable and not being reasonable. For example, if he was reasonable, his elders could clean up the mess no matter how big the trouble was. If he was unreasonable, it would be difficult for his elders to deal with it. However, since the matter had been exposed as the backbone of the circle, Chun Taihe would never admit defeat. He had to support his circle. Otherwise, how could his circle convince the public in the future? Du Xian attacked first. Obviously, they had ignored him. Even if Chun Taihe came forward to help them, he would not have the confidence to do so. Since Du Xian attacked them first, Chun Taihe had to find a way to change the focus by saying that Du Xian was too cruel. It was just an ordinary conflict. Du Xian's cruel attack was a bit too much. If anything happened, who would be responsible for it? It was undeniable that Chun Taihe could find a most favorable reason in such a short time. It could be seen that he was extraordinarily smart. Although Chun Taihe's family was prominent, Ma Weiyang didn't care about him at all. After all, the elders in Chun Taihe's family had retired. Those who were not in their positions would not meddle in politics. However, Ma Weiyang's father was still in his position. This was her advantage. In the same way, Chun Taihe was not afraid of Ma Weiyang. Although the elders of Ma Weiyang's family had retired, their influence was still there. Moreover, they did not have any contact with each other, let alone being friends. However, Song Hushing's appearance broke the deadlock, because Song Hushing was the soul of Ma Weiyang and Qin Ran's circle. This circle was a little special. In the beginning, it was just a small circle of best friends. Later, as they grew older, they got to know more and more friends, and it gradually evolved into a big circle. Within the big circle, there were several different small circles, but the soul was Song Hushing. Logically speaking, Song Hushing's father's generation had all been in the Qingshui Yamen. Now that they were almost retired and none of his relatives were in high positions, how could they suppress these rich playboys? After all, in this circle, if one's family didn't have a current or former substitute committee member, one would be embarrassed to greet others. If one was one step higher, then one would be an absolute core figure in the circle, such as Ma Weiyang. However, Ma Weiyang did not care about these things at all. Moreover, she was a woman and did not pursue an official career. Then how did Song Hushing become a core figure in this circle? The reason was very simple. It was because Song Hushing had an awesome grandfather. He was really awesome, and his qualifications were there for all to see. Moreover, Song Hushing had high hopes placed on him since he was young and had been praised by many big shots. That was why he could have such achievements. At this moment, as soon as Song Hushing showed up, everyone knew that the scene was getting more and more lively. After all, Song Hushing and Chun Taihe were not on good terms. Moreover, Song Hushing's words were a little fierce. Obviously, he was challenging Chun Taihe. You want an explanation? Let me see what kind of explanation you want. Therefore, the storm escalated again. It became a duel between Song Hushing and Chun Taihe. Lao Song, what do you mean? Chun Taihe squinted his eyes and said with a fake smile. He did not expect that Song Hushing would stand up, which was a bit troublesome. Song Hushing's eyes were a little disdainful. He glanced at Qin Sheng casually and said, Qin Sheng is not only Qin Ran's biological younger brother, but also my younger brother. He just paid a New Year's greeting to my grandfather this morning. Do you still want an explanation? Song Hushing's words were equivalent to confirming Qin Sheng's identity. No one doubted the relationship between Qin Sheng and Qin Ran anymore. Moreover, Song Husheng deliberately revealed a piece of news, which was that Qin Sheng just paid a New Year's greeting to old Master Song. Shen Taihe did not know how to respond to the moment. After all, although Song Husheng mentioned old Master Song, he was not supporting him, but Qin Sheng, who was next to him. Shen Taihe was not willing to mention his elders to support Du Xian. After all, they were not that close. Most importantly, after confirming Qin Sheng's identity, he would have to deal with Qin Sheng's father. Du Xian's and Ding Wen's family backgrounds have been ignored by the Qin family. Could it be that Chen Taihe intended to take all the responsibilities on himself? The tit-for-tat confrontation between Song Husheng and Chen Taihe instantly made the atmosphere at daggers drawn. Those who were in the center of the storm were secretly fighting against each other, while the onlookers at the sidelines were indifferent. They were drinking red wine and watching the scene leisurely. At this time, if no one gave both sides a way out, they might fall out with each other. After all, no one could afford to take a step back at this time. However, the peacemaker should be powerful enough. Otherwise, he would not be qualified. However, if he was powerful enough, no one would be willing to get involved in this mess. It might be a strenuous and fruitless effort. However, someone still came out to be the peacemaker. After all, he could not let the matter get worse and go out of control in the end. Lao Chun, Lao Song, what are you two doing? It's just a small misunderstanding. Can't you just apologize to each other? Don't make it look like you have killed your father. At this time, a man in a gray shirt, accompanied by a man and a woman, walked over slowly. The man said with a casual smile. He did not take this trivial matter seriously at all. He was not afraid that these two would not give him face, because if they did, they would be really inconsiderate. He was giving them a way out. Both sides would be punished 50 times. There were only two people here who could speak. Since the man was flirting with girls in the corner, he could only be the peacemaker. If they missed this opportunity, they could make trouble as much as they wanted. As soon as the man showed up, everyone knew that they could not make trouble anymore. It was time for this storm to come to an end. Otherwise, they would go too far. Chen Taihe lowered his head and admitted defeat first. It was impossible for him to continue to support Du Xian and Ding Wen. He could not do it anymore because he had paid too high a price. Consequently, he said in a hurry, "Sixth brother, what you said is right. It's just a small misunderstanding. It's just a quarrel between a few kids. Du Xian, you beat them first." It did not occur to him that such a trivial matter would become so big. He could not help but curse in his heart that he had been too impulsive just now. Not only had he been beaten, but he had also become a joke. At the same time, he had offended many people. After this, he would definitely be reprimanded by Brother Chen again and would owe him a big favor. It did not occur to him that Xiao Yufeng actually knew such a ruthless person who dared to help him here. Following that, so many big shots were involved. If he had known this, he would not have provoked Xiao Yufeng, even if he was beaten to death. Du Xian looked at Qin Sheng with an extremely terrible look. After all, this was the first time that he had suffered such a big loss. After being beaten, he had to apologize. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "I'm sorry." However, at this time, Qin Sheng said, "Not me." As soon as Qin Sheng said this, some people's expressions changed slightly. However, what Qin Sheng had said was not wrong, so they could not find fault with it. Du Xian lowered his head. The look in his eyes was quite vicious. Since the grudge had been formed, he would definitely take revenge on Qin Sheng in 10 or 20 years. A man should know when to yield and when to stand tall. Why would he be afraid of losing face? He just needed to lower his head to Xiao Yufeng. Although he was very unwilling, he had no choice at this time. Consequently, before Chen Taihe said anything, he raised his head and said to Xiao Yufeng again, "I'm sorry." Du Xian had already apologized. Now, it was Qin Sheng's turn. The others all looked at Qin Sheng. Song Husheng also said in a low voice, "Qin Sheng." If it were not for the fact that she was afraid that the matter would continue to get out of hand, Qin Ran would not have asked Qin Sheng to lower his head and apologize. However, she had no choice now. Otherwise, she would offend too many people. Qin Sheng said lightly, "I'm sorry. I hit him a little too hard just now. What he said seemed to be an apology, but also not like one. It was more like a joke. Upon hearing this, Du Xian was stunned. F***CK. Is this a F***king apology? Song Hushing's expression changed slightly. She was a little angry, but also inexplicably relieved. Chun Taihe stared at Qin Sheng. Is he not going to give me face? The man, who had taken the initiative to be a peacemaker, looked Qin Sheng up and down thoughtfully. He did not know why Qin Sheng was so courageous. The others all had different opinions about Qin Sheng's apology. However, at this time, no one dared to say anything. Qin Ran, Ma Weiyang, and the others did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, they gave Qin Sheng a thumbs up inwardly. In the end, Chun Taihe could not help but say, "That's it." The peacemaker had lost his patience. He put his arm around Chun Taihe's shoulder and said, "All right, Lao Chun, that's enough. And Lao Song, let's go and drink. Don't be disappointed by this trivial matter." Chun Taihe had no choice but to be dragged away. Today he had lost his face. Song Hushing also left. However, before he left, he looked at Qin Sheng a few more times with a somewhat meaningful look in his eyes. Since the big shots had left, the storm had come to an end. This matter had been left unsettled. Unless someone did not want to live in this world, he would not continue to make trouble. Ma Weiyang held Qin Sheng's hand and said with a smile, "Brother, don't just stand there. Let's go and drink." Qin Sheng was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he looked at Chow Yufeng and the woman beside him and said with a smile, "Let's go, Lao Air. It's time to catch up." A group of people left in this way, walking toward the seats where they had been sitting just now. Du Xian, Ding Wan, and the others, who were sitting opposite them, were also dragged away. Having suffered such a great loss, they probably did not want to stay here anymore. The onlookers left before them. After all, the fun had come to an end. Chapter 404. Chapter 403. I entero Sito, and that was the only way. Since Qin Sheng returned to Shanghai after disappearing for more than 2 years, Chow Yufeng had only seen him once. He was a man with ambitions and ideals. Meanwhile, his family placed high hopes on him and hoped that he could go further. Therefore, Chow Yufeng was under a lot of pressure. He had been more mature than his peers since he was a child. He didn't touch anything that he shouldn't touch. He could have chosen Peking University or Tsinghua University based on his grades in the college entrance examination. However, Chow Yufeng knew that staying in Beijing was too tempting. Therefore, he followed his family's arrangement and came to Shanghai without hesitation. During his 4 years in college, Chow Yufeng had never been in love. The number of times he skipped classes could be counted on one hand. He went to the library more often than Qin Sheng. After all, Qin Sheng sometimes went shopping with Su Qin. He majored in economics. However, he would attend the other 2 courses of the School of Economics, Finance and Public Finance, as long as there were no classes in his major, so that the teachers of the 2 majors thought he was a student of this major. At the same time, when he was a sophomore, he chose the 2nd major, International Politics. It could be seen that Chow Yufeng had planned his life from the very beginning, which was an official career. Among the 4 roommates, Chow Yufeng was definitely the most hardworking one. Even Qin Sheng felt ashamed. He had a better family background, was better than you, and worked harder than you. If such a man didn't succeed, who else could? When he graduated from college, Chow Yufeng hesitated whether he should take the postgraduate entrance examination or not. After all, he had more choices after graduating from graduate school. However, Chow Yufeng decided not to take the postgraduate entrance examination. He chose to take the civil service examination first. Then he could work and take the postgraduate entrance examination at the same time. Therefore, in the past few years after graduation, Chow Yufeng had been very busy. He wished he could have 72 hours a day. He had achieved what he had today, not because of his family's help, but because of his hard work. Although his family had told him about it when he was interviewed by the ministry, his ability was still recognized. After graduation, working, taking the postgraduate entrance examination, getting promoted, and now getting engaged and preparing for marriage, Chow Yufeng had planned his life very well. He followed the prescribed order step by step and took every step steadily. As for his relationship with Luo Xiao, Chow Yufeng didn't know her family background at first. His friend introduced him to her. He liked this girl's simplicity and sincerity. Besides, they had many common hobbies and topics. Therefore, they finally got together. As for Kai Han, who had chased after him for 2 years, Chow Yufeng admitted that she was beautiful and excellent. However, there were too many good-looking people, but too few interesting souls. Marriage was a lifelong event, not a child's play. Actually, Chow Yufeng had backed away from Luo Xiao. In fact, Chow Yufeng had hesitation with Luo Xiao's love. Yufeng was not a good match. Secondly, if he couldn't even face this pressure when it came to choosing a relationship, then his heart was too weak. 1 phones 1 V2 1 2 1 he and a he and he. Chow Yufeng, Luo Xiao, followed Qin Sheng and sat down. The three of them sat on the side. Chow Yufeng recalled the past few years and looked Qin Sheng up and down. Xia Ding had told him that Qin Sheng had stayed in Shanghai for a while. Then he disappeared for half a year and went to Hangzhou to develop his career. Some time ago, Xia Ding had called him and told him that Qin Sheng had disappeared again. Chow Yufeng couldn't help wondering what Qin Sheng was doing. Why did he disappear all of a sudden? Today, he suddenly appeared here and supported him. However, after the New Year's Eve dinner last night, Chow Yufeng had a video chat with Xia Ding and Yukefi. Of course, they talked about Qin Sheng. Xia Ding said that he didn't know how to tell them about some things. He could only tell them that Big Brother had a hard time in the past few years, and that they should help Big Brother more when they became powerful in the future. Chow Yufeng didn't say anything at that time. That was because at present, Xia Ding and Yukefi could help Qin Sheng more directly. However, he needed to climb to a certain position before he could help Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng also explained to the others, Sister Ponytail, let me introduce him to you. This is my roommate for 4 years in college. He is also my good brother, Chow Yufeng. Otherwise, the others didn't know why he was so impulsive and didn't flinch at all. It was not until then that the others understood. Qinren also understood why Qin Sheng was so angry. It turned out that he was not just an ordinary friend. He was also his roommate for 4 years in college. In this case, she could understand. Ma Weiyong snorted, Oh, I see. Your brother. Today, those fools got lucky. Brother, if you're still angry, I will help you vent your anger later. Ma Weiyong, who was annoyed by Chun Taihe, snorted. She was not afraid of Chun Taihe, but she had no way to deal with him. Besides, this matter had nothing to do with her. If Chun Taihe really provoked her, she would not care whether it was Chun Taihe or Li Taihe. She would definitely be unreasonable. Even though she was married, Ma Weiyong, who had never been serious, teased Qin Sheng again. But you were so handsome when you fought just now. Did you practice? If I wasn't married, I might have become your family's daughter-in-law. Even though she was married, she had never been serious. He said, I'm afraid that my brother-in-law heard it and blacklisted me in the future. Would he dare? Ma Weiyong found it funny. Her marriage was definitely a family alliance. However, she had no problem with it, because her husband treated her really well. As long as he didn't fool around outside, she could tolerate him. Consequently, everyone was envious of Ma Weiyong, who had found a good husband. Qin Ran stared at Ma Weiyong and said, Stop it, Ponytail. You are making fun of my brother again. Hearing Qin Ran's words, Ma Weiyong stopped. She turned around and chatted with Fan Deji and the others. Qin Ran looked at Chow Yufeng and said, Since you are Qin Sheng's roommate, you are also my brother. Is the injury on your face okay? Thank you for your concern, sister. It's not a big deal. I will be fine after I go back and put some ice on it. Sorry for the trouble today. Chow Yufeng was not so pretentious. It was not like he had never fought or been injured. Fortunately, it was a spring festival. If you want to work on a normal day, he might have a little trouble. You don't have to be so polite. Qin Ran looked at Luo Xiao and said, Your name is Xiao, right? I should have seen you a few times, but I met Uncle Luo more often. Qin Ran's words left a good impression on Luo Xiao. She said with a smile, Nice to meet you, Sister Ran Ran. At this time, Qin Ran looked at Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng immediately understood what his sister meant. If they wanted to talk about the old days, it was obviously not suitable to stay here. Consequently, Qin Sheng stood up and said goodbye to Ma Weiyang and the others. Then he left with Chao Yufeng and Luo Xiao. Although it was the Spring Festival, there were still a lot of restaurants open in the vast city of Beijing. After all, for many people, they could celebrate the Spring Festival next year, but they could not miss the money. This place was not far from Guay Street. After Qin Sheng went out, he took a taxi to Guay Street with Chao Yufeng and Luo Xiao and arrived in a few minutes. Qin Sheng was not familiar with this place, so Chao Yufeng chose a restaurant called Tong Lu, where he often came to eat crayfish. They entered the restaurant, found a table, and ordered. It was not until then that Qin Sheng looked at Luo Xiao and said to Chao Yufeng, "What? Are you not going to introduce her to me?" It was not until then that Chao Yufeng remembered that he had not introduced Luo Xiao to Qin Sheng. He did not know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "Let me formally introduce her to you. Luo Xiao, my girlfriend or fiancé. We got engaged before the Spring Festival. Xiao Xiao, this handsome guy, who was extremely brave just now, I guess you already know him. He is my college roommate, Qin Sheng." Qin Sheng took the initiative to formally greet Luo Xiao and said with a smile, "Lao congratulations. It did not occur to me that you are the second hero in our dormitory who is going to go to the grave of marriage. You will get married sooner or later. I will not talk about Xia Ding, the playboy, but I heard from Xia Ding that you also have a girlfriend who is so beautiful that it makes people's hair stand on end. When will you let me meet her?" When I had just been there, Chao Yufeng had felt somewhat pressured because he knew that the group of people sitting beside Qin Sheng were not ordinary people. Therefore, he had not spoken much. However, there were only the two of them now, so Chao Yufeng had returned to normal. Speaking of Lin Su, Qin Sheng sighed subconsciously. Chao Yufeng frowned and asked, "What's wrong? Did they break up?" Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "It's a long story. I will tell you later. I have not seen her for 2 or 3 months. Compared with your life, it is really not easy for me to get to where I am now." At this time, the waiter brought the wine over. Luo Xiao poured it for them naturally. Chao Yufeng picked up the wine glass and said, "It is the Spring Festival. Let's not talk about those sad things. I don't want to ask you about your past. It is enough for me to see you today. Let's drink." This was the Chao Yufeng he knew. Qin Sheng picked up the wine glass and drank it up. He said, "It has been 1.5 years since we parted in Shanghai. Time flies. I did not expect to see you here today. Alas, big brother, to be honest, don't laugh at me. In fact, based on my level, I am not qualified to attend such a party at all. However, Xiao Xiao wanted to come and said that she would introduce me to some friends. So I followed her. It did not occur to me that I would meet Du Xian here. However, after thinking about it, it is normal for others to come here, but it is not normal for me to come here. He and I are in the same unit. We do not like each other at all. Since we have different goals, we cannot make plans together. Usually, we do not have any contact with each other. Alas, who knows that more contradictions and hatred have arisen because of a woman. I was implicated. He likes that woman, and that woman likes me. She has been chasing after me for 2 days. So, Chao Yufeng briefly explained what had happened today to Qin Sheng. He also wanted to let Qin Sheng know that it was not him who took the initiative to make trouble, but others. Qin Sheng nodded with a smile and said, "I know your character. During the 4 years in college, when did you make trouble? However, you are so lucky with women. Aren't you afraid that Xiao Xiao will make you kneel on the washboard later?" Chao Yufeng said with a smile, "It's okay. She won't. Xiao Xiao knows this better than anyone else." Qin Sheng laughed out loud as he said, "Ha ha ha. It seems that you have found yourself a good wife." Though there had been an unpleasant episode just now, he was in a good mood since he could see his second brother again. Chao Yufeng picked up his wine glass and clinked glasses with Qin Sheng again. After that, the smile on his face faded away gradually. He said quite seriously, "Big brother, no matter what, I have to thank you today. If it were not for you, I would have lost my face. So, Xiao Xiao and I propose a toast to you." Qin Sheng picked up his wine glass and smiled bitterly as he said, "Do we need to say these words to each other? Don't talk nonsense. Let's drink." After drinking a glass of wine, Chow Yufeng said somewhat self-mockingly, "Alas, big brother, don't look down on me. When we were in college, we were unscrupulous and didn't care about fighting and making trouble. However, now that we have stepped into society, there are too many things we can't do. Du Xin punched me today. I can't afford to offend him. I can only endure it and admit that I am a coward. I don't want to endure it either. Who would like to be a grandson? But sometimes you have to be a grandson because you don't have the strength to be a boss. I have no choice. After all, he was born in a good family, and his uncle is the leader of our ministry." Qin Sheng was slightly stunned. He realized that his words at the beginning, "second brother, when did you become such a coward? You didn't even dare to fight back when you were beaten." He had hurt his second brother. He said in a hurry, "Second brother, I didn't mean to say that. Don't take it to heart." Chow Yufeng smiled bitterly as he said, "Big brother, I don't blame you. I just feel a little emotional. I think it is not only me who feels this way. Lao San and Lao Si probably have more helplessness." Qin Sheng filled up the wine glass and said, "Let's not talk about this today. After the spring festival, I will trick Lao San and Lao Si into going to Beijing. At that time, we will talk about it and get drunk." Chow Yufeng, who also felt that it was too sad, said in a hurry, "Okay, let's not talk about this. Let's drink." They did not drink for a long time. After all, it was the spring festival. Everyone had something to do tomorrow. However, they drank happily. Qin Sheng and Chow Yufeng did not talk too much nonsense. Chow Yufeng did not ask Qin Sheng anything about his past, nor did Qin Sheng ask about his work. That was because these things were not important to them. At this moment, it was enough for the two brothers to see each other and drink. Qin Ran sent a message to Qin Sheng on the way to ask him where he was. Qin Sheng told her that he was at the Tong Lu restaurant on Gue Street. Consequently, Qin Ran asked Uncle Gong's son to arrange a car to wait for Qin Sheng outside the Tong Lu restaurant until Qin Sheng, Chow Yufeng, and Xiao Xiao separated. On the way back to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, Qin Sheng felt a little emotional, especially when Chow Yufeng said, "I can only endure it and admit that I am a coward." He felt very sad. However, he had no choice. This was life. Chapter 4:05. Going south, a more Chow Yufeng planned his life and worked hard toward this goal. The more careful he was, as if he was walking on thin ice. He dared not let anything stop him, so he was a little tired of living. In contrast, Xia Ding always did not have a proper career. He spent most of his time flirting with girls instead of working. He seemed to be carefree and relaxed. Everyone had their own choices. Qin Sheng did not dare to say who was right or wrong. After all, he was still young. He could not judge who was right or wrong until 20 or 30 years later. Maybe Chow Yufeng, who was tired now, would be more relaxed at that time. At that time, Xia Ding might not be as good as he was now. Now, Qin Sheng could not care about others. Just like today, although they had vented their anger in the end, Qin Sheng owed Ma Weiyang and Song Husheng a favor. He would have to return the favor sooner or later. Therefore, what he could do was to make himself stronger as soon as possible. In this way, he would have more choices. When Qin Sheng went back to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, he found that the Sihiyuan, which was hung with red lanterns, was extraordinarily beautiful at night. If he did not look up at the tall buildings in the distance, he would feel like he was back to a boudoir courtyard in ancient times. Qin Chang'an had not come back yet. It seemed that as long as he went out at night, he would come back very late. In the living room, someone was watching a variety show attentively, but her smile was not so ladylike. Of course, it was Qin Ran. "Sister, why are you back so early?" After Qin Sheng came in, he saw his sister holding a pillow and laughing on the sofa. There were many fruits and snacks on the table. It was rare to see his sister so relaxed. So Qin Sheng said with a smile. Qin Ran looked up and replied, "I only stayed there for a while. Moreover, after you made such a scene, everyone lost interest. So they left early. They went to the workers' sports complex. I felt bored, so I came back." Did I do something wrong today? Qin Sheng sat next to her and asked carefully, like a child who had done something wrong. Qin Ran did not know whether to laugh or cry. Nothing wrong. Your friend was bullied. If you did nothing, it would be wrong. Qin Sheng felt relieved and said, "Thanks to you, Sister Ponytail, and the man from the Song family today. Otherwise, if I were there alone, I'm afraid I would have to bear the consequences. I was a little impulsive at that time. Don't think too much. This circle is like this. You will understand it gradually in the future. Shin Taiha might not fight for Du Xian's sake. He just wants to save face. This is his prestige in the circle. The same goes for Song Hushing. He's not helping you. He's just doing it for himself." Qin Ran explained with a smile. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Do I need to thank him later?" Qin Ran said with interest, "You don't have to be so deliberate. When you see him next time, just say so casually. But he may not appreciate it. I guess he doesn't have a good impression of you." Qin Sheng was confused. Why? Could it be because of this? No matter who was present today, I would have done the same thing. At most, I would have apologized later, even if I had to kowtow and admit my mistake. But I would definitely have done that at that time. Qin Ran thought of Song Ruyu. She guessed that Song Husheng would be more dissatisfied with Qin Sheng after what Qin Sheng had done today. Of course, she would not explain. She just said happily, "You will know later." After chatting for a while, the sister and brother went to rest. Qin Ran told Qin Sheng about the specific arrangements for the next day. They would go out to pay New Year's greetings at 8 o'clock. They would go to two families first, have lunch at their uncle's house, and then come back to entertain the guests. The next morning, after breakfast, Qin Ran took Qin Sheng out. Gong Sun had prepared the gifts, as usual. Qin Ran was quite familiar with the families that they were going to visit. Today, they were not going to visit some old people, but two big shots of the same generation who were close to Qin Chang'an. As for the rest, Qin Chang'an had his own arrangements. The families that Qin Ran and Qin Sheng wanted to visit were the ones that they had to go to. Otherwise, the sister and brother would be exhausted to death if they had to go to every family. As for the arrival of Qin Ran and Qin Sheng, Qin Chang'an had informed them in advance. Therefore, everything went smoothly. The elders of the two families showed great concern for Qin Sheng. The identities of these two people were not simple. After all, Qin Chang'an had his own reasons for asking Qin Sheng to pay a New Year's visit to them. In the end, the sister and brother arrived at a military compound at noon. This was their uncle's house. Qin Ran was very familiar with it, so she went in easily. In the small building on the second floor, except for Zhu Weiguo, the others had been waiting for Qin Sheng and Qin Ran. Today, Wu Yajun cooked by herself, and the two daughters-in-law helped her. The nanny had gone home for the new year, but she had prepared everything in advance. After Qin Sheng and Qin Ran came in, Zhu Qingyuan hurried to catch them. Zhu Fengyuan ran into the kitchen to inform them. "Mom, Ran and Sheng are here." Wu Yajun put down the things in their hands and walked out with the two daughters-in-law. She said with a smile, "You are quite punctual. Lunch will be ready soon. Sit in the living room and let your two cousins chat with you first." "Aunt, let me help you," Qin Ran said with a smile and was about to walk to the kitchen. Wu Yajun said angrily, "Are you sure you won't be a hindrance? You have been to the kitchen a few times since you were a child. The first time you helped me, you almost set the kitchen on fire. It's not like I don't know you." Qin Ran laughed and said, "Aunt, you know me well. Then we can sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor." Qin Sheng did not forget to stab Qin Sheng in the back. "Sister, it turns out that you have such a tough past. It's already polite of me not to let you in. How about I teach you how to cook later?" Qin Ran stared at Qin Sheng and snorted, "Go away. What's so great about cooking? I will find a husband who can cook in the future." After they sat down, Zhu Qingyuan poured them 2 cups of tea. His sister-in-law washed some fruits and brought them out. Qin Ran asked casually, "Cousin, where is uncle? Did he go to visit him?" "He left early yesterday morning. This year is good enough. He didn't come back on the New Year's Eve for the previous 2 years. So this year, we have benefited from you and your sister," Zhu Qingyuan said with a smile. Qin Ran sighed and said, "Oh, I thought Uncle was going to accompany us to Shanghai to visit Grandma this year. The old man happened to be in Jiangsu before the new year, so he took the time to go to Shanghai. After so many years, the old lady has been used to it. This year, you two are the most important protagonists, so it doesn't matter whether the old man goes or not. Zhu Fengyuan joked with a smile. I'm not the protagonist. The old lady doesn't miss me. This year, someone is the protagonist. I'm afraid that I have to prepare anti-hypertensive medicine for the old lady in advance. Qin Sheng stared at Qin Sheng and covered her mouth with a smile. Then she asked, Who will go with us? Zhu Qingyuan replied, Your aunt must stay at home to receive guests. Fengyuan will go back to the army in the afternoon. There are only 3 days of vacation. Someone needs to stay at home to help. So only your sister-in-law and I can go with you to Shanghai with the children. We haven't seen the old lady for several months. Qin Ran could understand what Big Cousin said. Being born in such a family, it was hard to have a chance to reunite. Many families in Sijio City were like this. Loyalty and filial piety were always difficult. She sighed and said, Then I will send a car to pick you and sister-in-law up tomorrow morning. At this time, Zhu Fengyuan's wife walked out of the kitchen and said, Dinner is ready. Then they moved to the dining room. The atmosphere at lunch was very warm. They were all family here, so they didn't need to worry about their identities. Moreover, Zhu Weiguo was not here, so these juniors were not stressed. They talked freely and made all kinds of jokes. Qin Sheng drank some wine with his 2 cousins. But he knew that second cousin would go back to the army in the afternoon, so he didn't drink too much. After lunch, Qin Ran took Qin Sheng back to the Sihiyuan. Several guests came to the Zhu family's small building, who were all Wu Yajun's nephews and nieces. When they went back to the Sihiyuan, compared with yesterday, there were many guests in the Qin family today. The front door was like a busy market, and it was very lively. Facing so many guests, Qin Chang'an was more or less exhausted. Moreover, he came back late last night and didn't have a good rest. Fortunately, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran came back at this time, so Qin Chang'an was relieved. At dinner, the children of Qin Chang'an's close friends stayed in the Qin family for dinner. They had a drink more or less during the spring festival. Qin Chang'an was still drunk last night. After a while, he went upstairs to rest, leaving Qin Sheng and Qin Ran to accompany him. These people were all familiar with Qin Ran, but it was the first time for them to meet Qin Sheng. When they found out Qin Sheng's identity, they were all shocked. Therefore, in the end, Qin Sheng was forced to drink a lot by these men. After all, the relationship between men depended on alcohol to maintain. Qin Ran couldn't help much, because she had to take care of the 2 women. When the dinner ended, it was already 9 o'clock. After seeing the guests out and seeing them get on the car, Qin Sheng directly fell into his sister's arms, completely unconscious, which made Qin Ran feel very sorry for him. After Qin Ran and Gong Sun helped Qin Sheng into the room, Qin Sheng vomited a lot not long after. Qin Ran was so angry that she almost smashed Qin Chang'an's door. You are free now. You let my brother suffer for you. Fortunately, Gong Sun stopped her. It was the 3rd day of the spring festival, and it was a good time to travel. Although Qin Sheng took a hot bath and drank 2 bowls of porridge, he was still drunk. He had a headache and felt sleepy. Sitting on the sofa in the living room, Qin Chang'an told them about going to Shanghai, what was for the old lady, what was for their small aunt and uncle. Of course, there were other tasks in Shanghai. Qin Ran stared at Qin Chang'an angrily. Obviously, she hadn't forgiven him. Qin Chang'an was already used to it, so he completely ignored it. After arranging everything, Qin Chang'an smiled and joked, When you go to Shanghai, don't say bad things about me to your grandmother. She doesn't like me at all. He wanted to ease the relationship with his daughter, although he knew it would be in vain. Qin Ran sneered and said, You won't go out. How do you know I won't say anything? I want to go, but the old lady may not want to see me. Qin Chang'an sighed. Qin Ran gloated and said, Oh, it's not so sure this time. Uncle will come to our house for the spring festival. You could try. Ha ha. I'll wait for you to go and ask the old lady. I'll think about it. Qin Chang'an would not be fooled. It was not the first time that he had been refused at the door. Moreover, He could not leave during the spring festival. Qin Ran teased Qin Chang'an for a while, and then said with satisfaction, "Okay, I'll plead for her. It's almost time for us to go." Qin Sheng had been silent, but he had no time to care about it now. He had a headache and stomach ache, so he had to adjust his state. If he continued to drink at night in Shanghai, it would be embarrassing. At this time, Qin Chang'an walked to Qin Sheng and said sincerely, "The old lady will be very happy to see you. You are her favorite grandson. You can stay in Shanghai for a few more days and accompany the old lady. After all, it has been more than 20 years." Qin Sheng's mood was inexplicably a little heavy. Recently, he had heard a lot of interesting things about his childhood, most of which was how his grandfather and grandmother loved him. So he was a little nervous to see his grandmother, afraid that she would be disappointed. They set off for the airport. This time, Qin Chang'an arranged for 2 bodyguards to go with them. After all, they were in Shanghai, and there was the threat of the Yin family. They had to be more or less careful. He and Gongsun watched the siblings leave and came back. When Qin Sheng saw the old lady, the debt of kindness between the Qin family and the Zhu family for more than 20 years would really end. They arrived at the airport at 11 o'clock. Zhu Qingyuan and his wife had been waiting for a long time with their child. After they met, they went through the security check and got on the plane, which took off soon. Chapter 406. Chapter 405. I introduce Owen Silly Lin Su. It's the end of the month. Please get a monthly ticket. Please get a monthly ticket. Considering Zhu Qingyuan's identity, they didn't take the Gulfstream G650 of the Qin family to Shanghai this time. After all, Zhu Qingyuan was an official with a high position. Although it was just a private activity to visit relatives and friends during the Spring Festival, it would be troublesome if someone wanted to take advantage of it. It was not a bad thing to be cautious. The most important thing was that Zhu Qingyuan was Zhu Weiguo's son. Therefore, Qin Ran and Qin Sheng, together with their sister-in-law and 2 children, sat in the first-class cabin in the front. Zhu Qingyuan and his 2 bodyguards sat in the economy cabin in the back. Today was the 3rd day of the Spring Festival. There were not many passengers on the plane. Qin Sheng chatted with his sister-in-law for a while and played with the 2 kids. Qin Ran chatted with his sister-in-law about women's topics. Qin Sheng liked children very much, especially the mischievous Now, who was very likable. Nowadays, the old lady loved this great-granddaughter the most. Even the air stewardess could not help but praise her. Now, on the other hand, said that her sister was very beautiful, which made everyone laugh. Now liked to sleep late. It was her only hobby. Even kids liked it, not to mention in winter. Usually, Now would not be up at this time. These days, she got up early and slept late, so she fell asleep after playing for a while. Sitting next to Now, Qin Sheng narrowed his eyes and started to think about Shanghai. Qin Chang'an asked him to stay in Shanghai for a while and accompany his old lady who hadn't seen him for more than 20 years. Maybe he could do something during this time. Even if he didn't want to hurt Yin Chaozong, he should meet some old friends. After thinking for a while, Qin Sheng, who had not yet sobered up, felt sleepy. Now, who was beside him, was sleeping so soundly. Qin Sheng had to continue to sleep so that he could be in the best state to meet his grandmother, who loved him the most. The temperature in Ningbo started to rise at the beginning of the Spring Festival. Everything gradually woke up. However, everyone was still immersed in the atmosphere of the Spring Festival and didn't notice anything strange. In the old mansion of the Lin family in Ningbo, as one of the wealthiest families in the region, the Lin family's manor, which covered an area of thousands of acres, was envied by countless local tycoons. It was estimated that many people were waiting for the Lin family's downfall and then couldn't wait to buy the Lin family's manor. However, the Lin family had been standing on this land for hundreds of years. How could it fall so easily? Every new year, the Lin family's manor would be especially beautiful. The roads on both sides of the road were decorated with lanterns and china knots. Even the trees were decorated with landscape lights. Those who didn't know better would think that it was a tourist attraction. During the Spring Festival, Any wealthy family like the Lin family, which had been rooted in a piece of land for hundreds of years, would be bustling with visitors. The courtyard was filled with luxury cars from all over the city. The two men of the Lin family received guests from different circles. After all, there were so many collateral relatives of the Lin family. The old lady was getting on in years. Due to her poor mood and health, she refused to entertain any guests this year. She spent most of her time in the temple, except for her morning and evening strolls and meals. The Lin family, which seemed to be full of distinguished guests, was actually hiding an unknown crisis. After all, the Lin family had not had an easy time this year. The initiator was Qin Sheng, or rather, Qin Chang'an, who was behind Qin Sheng. After Qin Sheng had an accident on Mount Jiuhua, Qin Chang'an had secretly made things difficult for the Lin family. A series of means made the Lin family exhausted. In addition, the government had implemented too many macro-control policies on the real estate and financial industry in the past 2 years, which made the Lin family situation even worse. Therefore, these sequelae had not ended until now. Therefore, after missing out on the marriage alliance with the Yin family, the Lin family began to look for a powerful ally again. This time, the bargaining chip was still Lin Su. Especially after knowing that Lin Su was faking her pregnancy, Lin Chongding was even more eager to find a powerful ally to provide more resources and funds. It had to be said that Lin Su was so unlucky to be born in a family like the Lin family. The most important thing was that she had a father who was extremely ambitious but had a fragile life. Although he was not capable and insightful, he was very ambitious. Lin Su, who had officially become Qin Sheng's woman, naturally refused without hesitation. There was no chance for her to compromise, which made Lin Chongting fly into a rage. He directly put Lin Su under house arrest and refused anyone's visit. Even the old lady, who wanted to see her granddaughter, was not allowed. The old lady was so angry that she could not get out of bed for a few days. During the spring festival, she even closed the door and refused to meet any guests. Therefore, the atmosphere in the Lin family was very subtle. On the third day of the spring festival, many guests came to the Lin family. Not to mention the children and nephews of the collateral relatives of the Lin family. There were many relatives of the two hostesses of the Lin family. Therefore, Lin Chongting and Lin Changhe had to entertain the guests in their respective buildings and had no time to spare at all. At this time, Lin Yu sneaked out and went to the building where Lin Su was put under house arrest. Usually, this place was used to receive guests. This time, 6 people were arranged to take care of Lin Su to prevent her from contacting others. Moreover, all the phones and internet in this building were blocked. Even Lin Su's mobile phone was taken away. Lin Yu cleverly avoided all the surveillance cameras and spies. Finally, she came to the back kitchen of this building. After making sure that there was no one around, she gently knocked on the door several times. Then the door was opened from the inside. A middle-aged woman stuck her head out and hurriedly pulled Lin Yu in. The middle-aged woman with dark skin frowned and said, "Second miss, you only have 15 minutes. Don't be late. Pay special attention to my secret signal, or I will have to leave the Lin family." She was one of the servants in charge of taking care of Lin Su. Today, she had taken a great risk to let Lin Yu sneak in through the back door. After all, Lin Yu had paid off the gambling debt of her gambler husband. This was the corresponding reward. Lin Yu, who had a ponytail, nodded silently and said, "Aunt Gu, don't worry. I will be out soon." The middle-aged woman called Aunt Gu said uneasily, "Then you go upstairs quickly. The eldest miss is in the room on the right side of the second floor by the window. She is so poor. I am sure she will be very happy to see you." Lin Yu felt somewhat bitter. She nodded and went upstairs carefully to see her sister. Until now, she still could not understand why her eldest uncle had done this. He clearly knew that her sister already had a boyfriend, but he still forced her to marry a stranger who had no feelings for her. Moreover, after what had happened to Yin Chaozong, he still wanted to do this. At the same time, she somewhat hated Qin Sheng. That ungrateful man. Why did he not come to her sister until now? Why did he let her bear all of this alone? Knock, knock, knock. When she heard the knock on the door, Lin Su, who would dress very delicately every day, was reading a book by the window. Everything outside the window could not affect her mood. The only thing that could affect her mood was every time she thought about whether that man was alive or dead, whether he was living a good life, whether he was very tired, whether he had suffered hardships, whether he had been bullied again, whether he had been wronged again, whether he could not contact her, and whether he would be very anxious and worried. It had been more than 2 months. Lin Su had lost a lot of weight. The smile on her face had also decreased a lot. However, the look in her eyes was very firm. The kind of temperament that came naturally and naturally became more and more refined. Hearing the knock on the door, Lin Su frowned slightly. It was not time for dinner yet. Why would someone disturb her? Lin Yu shouted somewhat anxiously, "Sister, open the door quickly. It's me." Hearing Lin Yu's voice, Lin Su was very surprised. She ran over in a hurry and opened the door. Seeing her sister, whom she had not seen for a long time, Lin Su held Lin Yu's hand and said in surprise, "Lin Yu, why are you here?" Lin Yu was very excited. Her eyes were red as she said, "Sister, I missed you so much. You have been wronged." Lin Su was also somewhat touched, but she did not cry. She smiled and comforted Lin Yu as she said, "Silly girl, why are you crying? I'm fine now." Since time was limited, Lin Yu had no time to be sad. She wiped away her tears in a hurry and followed her sister to the bedside. After she sat down, she asked, "Sister, are you okay?" Lin Su wiped away her sister's tears and chuckled as she said, "I am fine. In fact, it is quieter here. I read books and play the piano every day. It is rare for me to be so relaxed. If I had been outside, I would have had to face those people whom I did not want to face and listen to them saying the same things every day. That would have been more tiring." Lin Yu gritted her teeth as she said, "Sister, you should not have come back. You should have gone far away with him, just like you did in Shaman. Only then would you have been happy." Lin Yu could see her sister's future from here. Consequently, Lin Yu had been in a bad mood during this period because her family had already planned to do so. Lin Su shook her head and smiled as she said, "Lin Yu, I know that you blame him. However, there are some things that you do not understand. The grievances I have suffered are not worth mentioning compared to the pressure he has been under. He asked me to go back to the Lin family for my own good. At that time, he was in a very dangerous situation and could not protect me at all. If I stayed, I would only be a burden to him. As long as he is alive, everything will be fine. Moreover, he promised to come back to pick me up." Lin Yu frowned as she said, "Sister, it has been so long. There is no news about him at all. Do you still believe him?" She did not dare to say too harsh words for fear of hurting her sister. Originally, she wanted to say, "Sister, it has been so long. Don't be so naive anymore. Don't have any hope. He must have forgotten you and completely abandoned you. He is a coward." Lin Su nodded without hesitation as she said, Of course I believe him. This is the man I chose. If I don't believe him, who else can? I firmly believe that the best choice I have made in my life is him." Lin Yu somewhat admired her sister's determination. She followed up and asked, "Sister, have you ever regretted it?" Lin Su shook her head firmly again as she said, "Regret? No, never. Do you know when my happiest days were? During the half a year in Shaman, I accompanied him to walk and exercise every day. I saw him reading in the corner and practicing calligraphy in the study. Then I went to the market with him to buy vegetables and asked him to teach me how to cook. I heard him mumble that this dish is salty and that dish is a little sour. Wife, you have to work hard in the future." After that, I lowered my head and ate all the vegetables. When Lin Su said these words, there was a kind of radiance in her eyes. It seemed that she had returned to the life in Shaman again. It was really the most carefree and happiest days of her life. Consequently, she loved this man deeply and would continue to love him deeply. Although Lin Yu did not want to hurt her sister, she still said, "Sister, Big Brother said that he is dead. If he is dead, what will you do?" "No, he said that he is an undying cockroach. He said that his grandfather once told him that he would live to at least 80 years old. How could he be dead?" Lin Su found it funny as she thought of the man's look when he said these words. He was so talkative and deserved a beating. Lin Yu asked again, "Sister, what if he's really dead?" Lin Su's eyes were somewhat dim. Then she squinted, looked out of the window, bit her lip, and said slowly, "When I know this news, it will be the time for me to leave this world. Without him, there will be no nostalgia in this world." Upon hearing this, Lin Yu looked shocked. Chapter 407. Chapter 406. Introduction: A New Year's Gift. Although Lin Su was born in the Lin family, she was a super fair, rich, and beautiful girl in other people's eyes. Her friends and bosom friends all envied her. She had been pampered since she was a child and lacked nothing. It seemed that she was very happy. However, only Lin Su knew that she was not happy in the Lin family. Except for her grandmother, most people did not like her, especially that aunt and her brother. Maybe it was because of her mother. Therefore, the happiest time for Lin Su was when she accompanied Qin Sheng and Shaman to recuperate. She was carefree, simple, and stress-free. She did not need to think about those annoying things or see those people she did not want to see. The moment she chose Qin Sheng, she had made up her mind. No matter how much resistance she encountered, she would never compromise with anyone, because she wanted to fight for a simple love for herself. She would rather give up everything, and she had been doing that all the time. She was waiting for Qin Sheng to pick her up. She also believed that Qin Sheng would not forget her, even if it was the worst result. Lin Yu did not expect her sister to think so. It made her a little scared. She was afraid that what her brother said was true, that Qin Sheng was already dead. What about her sister? She did not know how charming this man was to make her sister do this. After Lin Yu came to herself, she held Lin Su's hand tightly and said uneasily, "Sister, don't scare me." Lin Su laughed and said, "I'm just kidding. You really believe it? How can I bear to leave you, my silly sister? I still want to see you get married. Moreover, there is still Grandma. She will definitely be sad. Moreover, Qin Sheng will not let me do this. I should be strong and continue to live." Lin Yu let out a long sigh and patted her chest. That's good, that's good. Sister, you scare me to death." Lin Yu did not know which part of Lin Su's words was true. Maybe only Lin Su knew. At least she would continue to wait for him. Lin Yu suddenly said mysteriously, "I almost forgot the business. Sister, guess what I brought you?" Lin Su frowned slightly and stared at Lin Yu curiously. "What? Is it my New Year's gift?" Lin Yu took out a mobile phone, handed it to Lin Su, and said, "This is your New Year's gift. I risked my life to steal it from eldest uncle." What Lin Yu sent to Lin Su was Lin Su's mobile phone, which had been taken away. Lin Su was shocked. She frowned and said, "Lin Yu, where did you find it? If your eldest uncle knows it, you will be doomed." Lin Yu said proudly, "Sister, as for how I found it, you don't have to worry about it. Moreover, eldest uncle definitely won't find out, because I did it secretly. Your sister is smart, right?" She knew that her sister's mobile phone had been taken away, so Qin Sheng definitely could not contact her sister. Therefore, she prepared a new phone in advance. Fortunately, she knew that her sister's screen was the original picture of the phone. She could set the password randomly. Anyway, they didn't know her sister's original password. Last night at dinner, Big Brother went out for a drink and didn't come back. Big Uncle stayed at home to entertain the guests, so Annie naturally had to accompany him. She sneaked into her eldest uncle's study. She didn't have high hopes, but who knew that she really found it in the drawer of his desk. Finally, she got the mobile phone. Lin Su was very excited and said, "Lin Yu, you are so smart. I love you so much." Lin Yu took out the charger and handed it to Lin Su. She said, "Hee, here is the charger. But don't let him find out. Otherwise, both of us will be doomed." Lin Su said happily, "Got it. Am I so stupid?" Lin Yu laughed and said, "Turn it on quickly. See if brother-in-law has contacted you. You disappeared for so long. He must be worried about you." Lin Su was somewhat nervous. She was afraid that there would be no news about Qin Sheng, because there was only one possibility, which was that Qin Sheng was dead. After all, such a long time had passed. Qin Sheng would definitely contact her to tell her that he was safe. Moreover, it was impossible for Qin Sheng to give up on her. Lin Su turned the phone on and waited. A series of messages popped up. She didn't bother to open WeChat at all. Instead, she directly tapped on the messages, looking for messages that might be sent by Qin Sheng. The more Lin Su scrolled down, the more nervous she felt. She was afraid that there would be no news about Qin Sheng. However, God didn't let her down. Finally, she found the message sent by Qin Sheng because she saw the word wife. Although it was a strange number, only Qin Sheng would call her that. Therefore, Lin Su was almost sure that this message was sent by Qin Sheng. She couldn't wait to tap on the messages and saw the message sent by Qin Sheng on New Year's Eve. Wife, Happy New Year. I'm fine. I will pick you up after the New Year. When she saw this sentence, she didn't doubt the authenticity of this message anymore. At this moment, Lin Su felt that all the waiting was worth it. No matter how much she had to suffer, she would not be afraid, because Qin Sheng was still alive and he didn't forget their promise. She stared at the phone and smiled foolishly. Her eyes gradually became blurred. In the end, the screen was wet with tears. Lin Yu guessed that her sister must have seen brother-in-law's message. However, she didn't know whether it was good or bad. She was somewhat worried and quickly lowered her head to read the message. After reading the message, Lin Yu hugged her sister and said, "Sister, you are right. Brother-in-law didn't let you down." Lin Su smiled and nodded with red eyes. "Sister called brother-in-law. Brother-in-law must have sent you a message because he couldn't reach you." Lin Yu reminded her in a hurry. She was afraid that her sister would be too excited and forget these things. Lin Su wiped her tears and immediately dialed the strange number. However, God played tricks again. Qin Sheng was on the plane to Shanghai at this moment, so his phone was turned off as expected. Hearing the beep from the phone, Lin Su, who was in a good mood, suddenly felt disappointed. The message was sent a few days ago. Why did his phone suddenly turn off during the New Year? Sister, don't worry. Maybe his phone is out of battery, or he hasn't woken up yet. I will write down his number and call a few more times later. You can try it. Lin Yu comforted her with a smile. In fact, she was also not sure, but she did this for now. Lin Su shook her head and smiled bitterly. I'm not so fragile. Lin Su hesitated for a while and finally sent a message to Qin Sheng. Happy New Year. I am fine and waiting for you. On the plane to Shanghai, of course, Qin Sheng did not receive this message. However, he saw Lin Su in his dream. He dreamed that Lin Su gave birth to a son and a daughter for him. Lin Su held the daughter in her arms and basked in the sun in the courtyard of the Sihiyuan. He played with his son by the side. Life was so comfortable. When Qin Sheng opened his eyes, the plane had begun to descend. In 20 minutes, they would arrive at Shanghai Pudong Airport. Now tilted her head and stared at Qin Sheng in a daze. The little girl blinked her big watery eyes and asked, "Uncle, why did you smile when you were sleeping?" Qin Sheng said gently, "Because I dreamed of someone I liked." Now, do you have someone you like?" "Yes, Grandpa, Grandma, Dad, Mom, Brother. There are so many." Now counted seriously with her fingers. Qin Sheng touched Now's hair and said with a smile, Now, you are such a good girl. When we arrive in Shanghai, I will take you to Disneyland, okay?" "Really? Uncle, I like you too." Hearing the words Disneyland, Now instantly replied happily. Qin Sheng could not help laughing out loud when he heard her say, "Uncle, I like you too." Children were really interesting. In the future, if Lin Su was willing, she could give birth to at least 3 or 4 children, even if she did not dare to say that she could give birth to 8 or 10 children. Thinking of this, Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He was afraid that Lin Su would definitely beat him if she knew it. Didn't she know that it was very hard for a woman to give birth to a child? After the plane landed at Pudong International Airport, Qin Sheng pushed his luggage and held Now in his arms and followed the others out. His sister-in-law muttered, "Qin Sheng, don't spoil her too much. Let her come down and walk by herself." "Cousin-in-law, it's okay. Girls should be spoiled," Qin Sheng said half-jokingly. The others could not help laughing. It could be seen that Qin Sheng liked children very much and liked Now very much. They were afraid that he would spoil her to death these days. Qin Ran had arranged everything in advance, and did not ask Small Ant to pick them up at the airport. She did not need to bother them with such a small thing. After all, everyone was very busy during the spring festival. A Buick business car was just right for everyone. 2 bodyguards sat in the SUV behind with their luggage. At this time, Qin Sheng finally did not need to hold Now Now in his arms, so he handed her over to his sister-in-law. After they set off, Zhu Qingyuan asked casually, "Qin Sheng, have you been to Shanghai before?" Qin Sheng took out his phone and was about to turn it on. Qin Ran heard her cousin's words and replied with a smile, "Cousin, you definitely don't know that Qin Sheng's university is in Shanghai." "Oh, I really don't know." "Which university?" Zhu Qingyuan said in surprise. Qin Ran smiled slightly and said, "Fudan." "Oh, it turns out that Qin Sheng is also in Fudan. It seems that our family and Fudan are quite predestined," Zhu Qingyuan said with interest, because Small Ant was teaching in Fudan. Zhu Qingyuan looked at Qin Sheng and asked again, "Qin Sheng, what's your major?" Qin Sheng stared at the phone and said nothing. Zhu Qingyuan asked again, "Qin Sheng." Qin Sheng still stared at the phone and said nothing. "Why?" Chapter 408. I Love You. Me too. Qin Sheng had dreamed of Lin Su on the plane, but he didn't expect that he would receive Lin Su's text message as soon as he landed. At this moment, he was so excited that he didn't know what to do. After all, he finally felt at ease. He was thinking of her, and she was also thinking of him. How many one-night stands were there? The ends of the earth and the ends of the world were not long. Qin Sheng and Lin Su had been separated for more than 2 months. Not to say that one day without seeing each other felt like 3 years, but they had been together for a whole year and had long been used to each other's existence. Moreover, they were in love, and this kind of missing each other made them sleepless at night and confused. Other people's separation was just a short separation, and in today's society, they could still contact each other through the phone and the internet. However, Qin Sheng and Lin Su's separation was almost the difference between life and death. Even if they were lucky enough to survive, they dared not contact each other easily. When facing death, Qin Sheng thought of Lin Su. When he fled to Tsingtao, Qin Sheng also thought of Lin Su. When he returned to Beijing, Qin Sheng still thought of Lin Su. This woman, who was neither sad nor happy, meant a lot to him. She made Qin Sheng feel that he would rather let everyone down than let her down. 2 words, waiting for you. For Qin Sheng, this was the best words of love in the world. It didn't need thousands of words or sweet words to let him understand Lin Su's deep love in an instant. Qin Sheng stared at the phone in a daze for a long time. He really wanted to see his beloved woman through the phone. He giggled, just like Lin Su when she saw his text message. Zhu Qingyuan didn't know what happened, so that Qin Sheng stared at the phone in a daze. He called her several times, but there was no response. He thought that something big had happened to make Qin Sheng so absent-minded. He subconsciously looked at Qin Sheng's phone screen. When he saw the line of text message, he understood what was going on. Zhu Qingyuan patted Qin Ran's shoulder in front of him with a smile. When Qin Ran turned around, Zhu Qingyuan pointed at Qin Sheng. Qin Ran didn't know what her big cousin meant. She looked at Qin Sheng in confusion and frowned slightly. She didn't know why Qin Sheng stared at the phone in a daze. "Qin Sheng, what's wrong with you?" Qin Ran asked with concern. Only then did Qin Sheng come to his senses. He raised his head and looked at Qin Ran. His eyes were full of longing and love as he said, "Sister, I miss her." Of course, Qin Ran knew what was going on. They had not seen each other for more than 2 months. Of course, Qin Sheng missed his wife. She pursed her lips and smiled faintly as she said, "After I finish the business in Shanghai, I will accompany you to Ningbo. This time, I will see who dares to stop you." In the end, Qin Ran's face was filled with anger. If not for the fact that she was really satisfied with Lin Su and that she loved Qin Sheng deeply, Qin Ran really did not want to have anything to do with such a family. Qin Ran knew how the Lin family treated Qin Sheng and Lin Su. If Qin Chang'an had not stopped her, she would have gone over to argue with the Lin family. Zhu Qingyuan did not know what was going on. He smiled happily and said, "Oh, our Qin Sheng already has a girlfriend. Your cousin-in-law said that she would introduce a girlfriend to you. It seems that it is not necessary. When will you let us meet your girlfriend? Qin Ran was thinking about the Lin family. Upon hearing what Qin Sheng said, she smiled faintly and said, Cousin, our Qin Sheng's girlfriend is very beautiful. She is a girl that both the old man and I are very satisfied with. She has done a lot for Qin Sheng. When you meet her in the future, you will know how excellent this girl is. But, upon hearing what Qin Ran said, Zhu Qingyuan was happy for Qin Sheng. Unexpectedly, Qin Ran changed the topic. Zhu Qingyuan asked curiously, but what? The girl's family makes me feel a little disgusted. They have been obstructing us in every way possible, Qin Ran said angrily. She also wanted Zhu Qingyuan to know how much grievance Qin Sheng had suffered before he returned to the Qin family. Zhu Qingyuan immediately asked with a gloomy face, What happened? You may not know how our Qin Sheng was treated when he went to that family for the first time. Not to mention that he was not allowed to drink a glass of water. They were mean and sarcastic. The most hateful thing was that they beat Qin Sheng out, Qin Ran said, gnashing her teeth. Zhu Qingyuan was shocked and said, Really? These things had passed. Qin Sheng could understand that the Lin family looked down on him, so he said with some embarrassment, Sister, let's not talk about this. Qin Ran did not stop there. Instead, she replied, Why not? You don't know how many days I felt when I found out about this. If the old man had not stopped me, I really wanted to go to Ningbo and stand in front of the elders of the Lin family, asking them face to face, Is this the way the Lin family raised them? What a good Lin family, Zhu Qingyuan said with a gloomy look. He did not expect that Qin Sheng had suffered such a great grievance. Qin Ran continued to complain. They think that their family is prominent, while our Qin Sheng is ordinary and does not deserve their family. There are many things that I will not say, lest they affect everyone's mood. Cousin, I am afraid that if you know, you will even want to kill them. Zhu Qingyuan said meaningfully, Then I really want to meet the Lin family and see their ugly faces. But Ran, don't tell Grandma about this. If she knows it, it will be a big deal. Zhu Qingyuan said meaningfully, Okay. Seeing that Qin Sheng was somewhat dissatisfied, Qin Ran stopped hurriedly and said, Of course I know. The old lady loved this grandson the most. They had been separated for more than 20 years, so she knew that her grandson must have suffered a lot outside and suffered a lot. If she knew about this, according to the old lady's temper, she would cut the Lin family into pieces. Qin Sheng and Lin Su's relationship would be affected in the end. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry, but he also knew that his sister cared about him. However, after being interrupted by his sister, Qin Sheng almost forgot the business. He picked up his phone again and directly dialed Lin Su's number. He could not wait to hear Lin Su's voice. In the Lin family's manner, Lin Su was chatting with Lin Yu. The two sisters had not seen each other for a long time and had a lot to talk about. However, Lin Yu stared at the time and had to leave when it was time. Otherwise, she and her sister would be punished if they were found out. At this moment, Lin Su's phone, which was placed by the bedside, suddenly vibrated, startling her. She subconsciously picked up the phone. When she saw the name displayed on the screen, she almost burst into tears again. She had already saved Qin Sheng's new phone number just now, afraid that she would miss his message. Lin Su held the phone and was somewhat at a loss. Lin Yu also saw Qin Sheng's face and said excitedly, Sister, why are you still in a daze? Answer it quickly. Lin Su slowly answered the phone, her right hand grabbing her clothes nervously. After more than 2 months, she finally received his call. She did not know how to describe this feeling. In the car to Shanghai downtown, Qin Sheng was even more anxious than Lin Su. He had prepared a lot of words, but when the phone was answered, he was so nervous that he did not know what to say. It was like the scene when he met Lin Su again in Shanghai. In the end, Qin Sheng still took the initiative to speak first. He did not care that his sister, cousin, and cousin-in-law were still in the car, and said in a very gentle voice, Wife, you have been wronged. Qin Ran and Zhu Qingyuan looked at each other and smiled. They did their own things at the same time and did not disturb Qin Sheng and his girlfriend's romance. It was still a familiar voice. What Qin Sheng said made Lin Su, who had been holding back her tears, instantly turn red. She replied with a slight sob, I am not wronged. I'm not wronged at all. Qin Sheng could feel that Lin Su, who was sitting opposite him, had already cried. He said very distressingly, You are not allowed to cry during the spring festival. It is so inauspicious. When you smile, I think you look the most beautiful. Okay, I won't cry. Lin Su nodded obediently. Then, she wiped her tears and raised the corner of her mouth, showing the most brilliant smile. It was as if Qin Sheng was standing in front of her and could see her smile. Qin Sheng said immediately, I am very good, very good. You don't have to worry. It's just that a lot of things have happened during this period. The happiest thing is that I found my parents, my sister, and many other relatives. I will explain to you when I see them. They all want to meet you and meet the stupidest woman in the world. Upon hearing this news, Lin Su was very shocked. She knew everything about Qin Sheng. She knew that Qin Sheng and his grandfather depended on each other since childhood. Most of the time, he lived in his foster parents' house. After his grandfather passed away, he really became an orphan. It did not occur to her that Qin Sheng actually found his biological parents and other relatives. She felt happy for Qin Sheng from the bottom of her heart. Really? That's great. I don't know how to be happy for you. However, I am not stupid at all, Lin Su said excitedly. Qin Sheng said with a smile, If you're not stupid, you are so beautiful and outstanding. How could you find a man like me who has achieved nothing? I don't allow you to say that. I believe in my judgment. The man I choose is definitely the most outstanding man in the world. Lin Su pouted and said discontentedly. Then, she praised Qin Sheng a few more times. Qin Sheng felt both distressed and gratified. She was really a silly woman. There was a world of difference between before and after falling in love. No wonder the seniors all said that no matter how aloof a goddess was, she would become a little woman after finding the man she liked. At this time, Qin Sheng became silent because he thought of this stupid woman situation in the Lin family. The more relaxed she seemed to be, the more Qin Sheng felt. Why don't you say anything? Lin Su asked confusedly. Qin Sheng sighed and squinted. I know how the Lin family treated you. I know all of this. There are some things that I don't know how to tell you. But you just need to know that I'm not the Qin Sheng in the past anymore. I will definitely make the Lin family pay for what they have done to me and you. I am really fine. You don't have to worry. Lin Su was afraid that Qin Sheng would do something impulsive again, so she quickly comforted him. Qin Sheng felt that it was useless to say these things now. He had to pick up Lin Su as soon as possible. So he replied, Wife, wait for me for a few more days. Just a few more days. After I finish my business in Shanghai, I will go to Ningbo to pick you up immediately. This time, no one can stop me. Okay. Lin Su nodded heavily, because she knew Qin Sheng's character very well. If he was not absolutely sure, he would not have been so confident. Maybe a lot of things had happened during this period. Maybe she would know when she met Qin Sheng. Now, she was already looking forward to meeting Qin Sheng in a few days. Whether it was 10 days, half a year, or 3 to 5 years, she could wait. At this time, Angu, who lived downstairs, ran up and knocked on the door. Second miss, come out quickly. Someone is coming. If you don't leave now, it'll be too late. Lin Yu originally wanted to chat with her sister after the phone call. Now she could only stand up quickly and said, Sister, someone is coming. I have to go now. Lin Su was very reluctant to hang up the phone. She really wanted to talk to Qin Sheng more, but someone was coming. At this time, she had no choice but to say, Someone is coming. I have to hang up. I will call you later. Lin Yu just stole the phone from me. It did not occur to him that the Lin family had even confiscated Lin Su's mobile phone, which made him very angry. But now he could only say, I see. Take care of yourself. If you really can't bear it, inform me immediately. I will definitely come to you as soon as possible. Qin Sheng's words made Qin Sheng realize why he could not get in touch with Lin Su a few days ago. Got it, Lin Su replied with a smile. I love you, Qin Sheng said sincerely. Even if he said 10,000 times, he could not express the love in his heart. Hearing these 3 words, Lin Su instantly blushed. She said gently, "Me too." After saying these 3 words, Lin Su quickly hung up the phone. If she did not hang up and was discovered, she would not be able to contact Qin Sheng in the future. Chapter 409. Chapter 408. Been calling Grandma. The second chapter was late. This chapter took a long time to write and made everyone wait for a long time. Although he hung up the phone, he missed her so much. Qin Sheng was lying comfortably in his seat with a smile on his face. It was so sweet that it could melt the snow in winter. The new year was a new beginning. Lin Su's phone call filled Qin Sheng with anticipation for the coming year. At least this year, he would not have to wander from place to place. This year, he would not be alone and helpless. In a Lin family's manner, Lin Su, who was lying on the bed, had the same smile and the same mood. She was looking forward to Qin Sheng's arrival in a few days, like the first spring breeze in the cold winter, like the first dawn in the long darkness, waiting for the spring breeze and the warm sun. However, Lin Su was thinking more about what Qin Sheng had experienced during this period of time. How did he find his family? Why was he so confident? What was he going to do in Shanghai? Could it be that he was going to take revenge on Yin Chaozong? Thinking of this, Lin Su started to worry about Qin Sheng again. She began to worry about her gains and losses. But then she laughed at herself. Qin Sheng was not so stupid. Moreover, if he had to choose between taking revenge or picking her up, he would definitely choose the latter without hesitation. After Qin Sheng finished the call, Qin Ran turned around and deliberately joked, "I didn't expect that my brother could be so mushy. When will you say I love you to me?" Now, who was sitting behind, finally cheered up. She giggled and said, "Annie Ran, I love you." Qin Sheng was a little embarrassed and replied, "Sister, don't make fun of me." Qin Sheng was talking on the phone just now. Although everyone was avoiding him, they naturally heard him. They knew some of the bad things and also heard the good things. Zhu Qingyuan was getting more and more interested in the Lin family. "All right, I'm just teasing you. You're blushing. I know you haven't seen or contacted each other for more than 2 months. This is human nature. If it were others, they would have gone crazy. But you can bear the loneliness," Qin Ran said with a smile. Qin Sheng said with interest, "Sister, what about you? Do you have anyone you like? When will you get married?" Qin Ran pretended to be angry and said, "Well, boy, do you have any conscience? You just came back and you already want to drive me away. Are you afraid that I won't leave early? Besides, your wife hasn't married yet. I'm not happy." Qin Sheng hurriedly bowed to the back of the seat in front of him and apologized. "Sister, didn't mean that. How can I bear to leave you? Where can I find a sister who loves me so much? It's been more than 20 years, and I've finally found such a biological sister. I can't wait to have her by my side. Besides, I really don't know which man is worthy of my sister." Qin Ran was satisfied after hearing that, but she still teased Qin Sheng on purpose. "So you mean I can't get married?" Qin Sheng said helplessly, "It's over. I've offended you so much. Whatever I say is wrong." As expected, he could not offend a woman. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. If he tried to reason with a woman or quarrel with her, he would lose as soon as he opened his mouth. Seeing her brother's embarrassed look, Qin Ran smiled so much that her eyes almost became a line. She almost turned around, pinched Qin Sheng's face, and said, "You are such a silly brother." After more than 20 years of waiting, it had been 2 months since Qin Sheng came back. Qin Ran felt that the relationship between them seemed to have returned to their childhood. However, when they were young, it was her brother who always protected her. Now that they had grown up, it was her turn to protect her brother. However, she was a woman after all. A woman had to get married. It was impossible for her to stay in the Qin family forever. Even if her brother and the old man were willing, her brother's future wife would not be willing. Besides, she did not think about not getting married. Therefore, Qin Ran sighed and said with some relief, "Yes, you're back. My task has been completed. It's time for me to get married. If I don't get married, I will really become an old lady who no one wants." "Sister, don't say that. Qin Sheng said with some distress. As he had thought before, it seemed that he had lived a hard life in the past 20 years, but these relatives were more pitiful. This was because he did not know that he still had relatives, but these relatives knew of his existence. As long as they could not find him, they would feel sad and tormented, especially relatives like his sister, who had doted on him since he was young. They felt more wronged than him. Qin Ran turned around and looked at him gently. She smiled faintly and said, "Silly brother." The atmosphere in the car was a little sad and a little warm. Zhu Qingyuan looked at this pair of brother and sister who had not seen each other for more than 20 years. He did not feel any estrangement or distance between them. It seemed that they had never been separated. Maybe this was family. The two cars went from Pudong Airport to the place where the old lady lived along the viaduct. When Qin Sheng had been in Shanghai before, he had walked this road countless times. He had long been familiar with the surrounding buildings. However, this time, the feeling was the most different. He remembered that when he had just returned to Shanghai 2 years ago, it was the first time after he graduated from university. He stood by the Huangpu River and looked at the increasingly prosperous city. He said meaningfully, "One day, this city will remember me for many years to come." However, the reality was cruel. God gave him a hard slap in the face. In the end, he left in embarrassment. After all, this city had a population of tens of millions. Many people had said such bold words. Any ambitious man wanted to stand out after entering this city, especially those who came from small places. However, in the end, how many people had taken root in this city? How many people had made a name for themselves? How many people had made a name for themselves? How many people had been remembered by the city, like Qin Sheng? Most people were defeated by reality. They either lived in this city or left helplessly. When he went to Mount Jiuhua, he did not know that it was the last time he would leave Shanghai. However, when he was in Xiamen, he told himself that he would go back sooner or later. After that, the most important thing to do when he went back was to take revenge. That was why he was so desperate when he was in Hangzhou. It seemed that he wanted to seize any opportunity, whether it was Chao Da, Third Master Wu, boss of the underground boxing field, or Master Lu. However, in the end, he left Hangzhou in embarrassment again. This time, he was more miserable than the last time. At least he had Lin Su with him last time. This time, he was alone. At that time, Qin Sheng had forgotten what he had said when he had just arrived in Shanghai. His only hope was to accumulate enough strength to go back and take revenge. However, God had played a joke on him, and this joke was not an ordinary one. That was why he could return to Shanghai in such a short period of time, openly and above board. "Shanghai, I'm back," Qin Sheng could not help saying again when they were on the highway. Number 68 Sinan Road, diagonally opposite the Sinan Mansion and directly opposite the Memorial Hall of the Chinese Communist delegation in Shanghai. The old lady of the Zhu family lived here. It was very close to Fuxing Park. Besides, it was close to Ruijin Hospital. The old lady was not in good health. Once there was an emergency, she could be sent to the hospital immediately. This old foreign-style house was the legacy of the old lady's brother. The old lady's family lived nearby, but it was demolished later. The old lady's brother didn't want to go anywhere else, so his son bought this foreign-style house for his father to live comfortably for thousands of years. Every time the old lady came back to Shanghai, she lived here. Later, the old lady's brother passed away. The old lady's nephew did not dare to sell this old foreign-style house. He knew that his aunt liked to live at home every time she came back, so he renovated it. Since then, the old lady had been living here instead of living with her little daughter. She was familiar with the environment here and preferred to live here. Secondly, she also liked quiet and did not want to be disturbed by others. Most importantly, the identity of the youngest son-in-law was relatively simple. Now he was more and more distant. The old lady was a native of Shanghai. Later, she joined a revolution and left Shanghai. She met old Master Zhu in the hospital in the base area. Since then, they had known each other for a lifetime. When old Master Zhu worked in Shanghai, the old lady's family helped him a lot. Most of the time, only the old lady lived in this old foreign-style house, with 2 nannies, a professional medical staff, and a guard. Her little daughter came here every day and sometimes lived here. Every weekend, those children also came to see her, so the old lady did not feel lonely. In recent years, the old lady lived in Shanghai most of the time. Especially during the festival, she was even more reluctant to go back to Beijing because she would always be disturbed by a lot of people. The old lady could not refuse, so she had to hide in Shanghai. "Daughter, what time is it? Why haven't Ran and the others arrived yet? I'm afraid they must be starving." In the living room, an old lady with a head full of silver hair nagged at a charming middle-aged woman who had just come out of the kitchen. The old lady looked very thin, and her face was full of wrinkles. However, her clothes were very exquisite, and her hair was neatly combed. She did not look like an ordinary old lady. At this time, a young man sitting next to the old lady said, "Grandma, you have asked 6 times in half an hour. How old are my cousins? They won't get lost." The middle-aged woman stared at the young man and said, "You brat, how can you talk to your grandma like that? Isn't your grandma worried about your cousins?" The middle-aged woman stared at the young man and said, this was her ignorant and incompetent youngest son, who had not done anything decent until now. On the other side of the sofa, another beautiful woman in a gray sweater skirt smiled and said, "Grandma, I just called them. They have already left the overpass. They will probably arrive in a few minutes." The old lady was still worried and said, "Daughter, go to the kitchen and see if the food needs to be heated." "Mom, I'll go right now." The middle-aged woman turned around and walked into the kitchen. Of course, she knew that her mother loved her granddaughter the most. Moreover, her favorite great-granddaughter was also here. The beautiful woman looked at the old lady and asked, "Grandma, my cousin said she brought you a special New Year gift this time and said you would like it. What is it?" The old lady did not know whether to laugh or cry and said, "I really don't know. That girl refused to tell me." The young man muttered, "You will know later." At this time, Qin Sheng's 2 cars had turned along Middle Fuxing Road into Sinan Road. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Sister, how far is it?" Because he was so familiar with this road, he saw the Sinan mansion from afar. Shangshan Ruoshui was on Sinan Road, but it was closer to Middle Huaihai Road. But Han Bing's company was in the Sinan mansion at the beginning. He often came to pick up Han Bing, but later moved to Xiniandi Bailey. Qin Ran pointed to the old foreign-style house in front of them and said, "It's in front." Qin Sheng was shocked again. He did not expect that his grandma lived here. He used to be so close to his grandma. Maybe he had seen her before, but they did not know each other's identity. Life was so dark and funny. When the 2 cars drove to the front of the old foreign-style house, the Buick MPV honked a few times, and the closed gray door was open from the inside. Naturally, the old foreign-style house heard the noise. The beautiful woman stood up in a hurry and said, "Grandma, cousin is here." The old lady also wanted to stand up, but was stopped by the woman. She laughed and said, "Mom, just sit here. Let the 2 kids go out to pick them up. It's not a big deal." The beautiful woman in a gray sweater dress walked out of the house with the cynical young man and went out to pick up their cousins and children. When they came out, Qin Ran, Zhu Qingyuan, and the others just got off. Now, come here and call me aunt." The beautiful woman smiled when she saw Now. Obviously, Now was very familiar with the beautiful woman. She was not shy at all. She directly trotted over and was directly picked up by the beautiful woman. Qin Ran's eldest sister-in-law was scared and hurriedly told her to be careful. The young man looked at Qin Ran and Zhu Qingyuan and said, "Hello, cousin, you finally arrived." If you didn't arrive, the old lady would ask again. After hearing this, Qin Ran said angrily, "Zhu Jiayo, are you itching for a beating? Why didn't you go to the airport to pick us up? Cousin, you didn't let us pick you up. Now you blame me." The young man named Zhu Jiayo laughed. At this time, the beautiful woman turned around and said hello to Qin Ran and Zhu Qingyuan. It was not until Qin Ran let the young man go. However, the beautiful woman and the young man looked at Qin Sheng at the same time and asked confusedly, Cousin, who is this?" Qin Ran deliberately kept them guessing. "You will know in a while." This made them more curious. They could not help but look Qin Sheng up and down. However, Qin Sheng was very calm. He just smiled and nodded. They could not help but wonder if he was their cousin's boyfriend. This was too unexpected. When they walked into the living room and saw the old lady, Now wanted to get rid of the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman conveniently put her down. Then Now ran directly to the old lady and shouted in a tender and lovely voice, "Grandma." The old lady had asked her great-grandchildren to call her grandma. Therefore, after seeing Now, the old lady was very happy. She smiled lovingly and said, "My Now has grown taller again. Grandma, you have also grown taller." Now held the old lady in her arms and said happily, "Grandma, I missed you so much." When the old lady looked at Qin Ran had already said hello to her small aunt. Then she said coquettishly, "Grandma, I missed you so much." "Grandma missed you too," the old lady said lovingly. When she was old, she liked to be with children the most. It was very interesting to listen to them talking and laughing. At this time, Zhu Qingyuan and his wife also greeted the old lady and small aunt with their eldest son. The old lady and the middle-aged woman naturally praised them. At this time, the middle-aged woman looked up at Qin Sheng, who was standing in the distance. She did not know who he was. Then she was stunned, because she found Qin Sheng somewhat familiar. It seemed that she had seen him before, but she could not remember. At this time, the old lady also saw a strange young man standing not far away. She seemed to have never seen him before. She could not help but feel confused. Ran, who was this child? Qin Ran looked at Qin Sheng and the old lady and said meaningfully, "Grandma, this is my New Year gift for you." Guess who he is? After Qin Sheng walked into the living room, he saw the old lady sitting on the sofa with a kind face. He was stunned subconsciously and did not move at all. Looking at the old lady in front of him, Qin Sheng felt very sad. This was the grandma who had loved him the most. This was the grandma who had missed him day and night for 20 years. Qin Sheng remembered that he had seen his grandma's appearance in a photo some time ago. When he had left Beijing, his grandma had looked very spirited. Now 20 years had passed. Grandma was really old, and his grandfather could not wait to see him again. At the thought of this, Qin Sheng felt really sad. He saw the old lady and everyone else staring at him. At this time, Qin Sheng clenched his teeth and finally took 2 steps forward slowly. Then, under everyone's gaze, he knelt in front of the old lady without any warning. Then he kowtowed heavily and shouted in a trembling voice, "Grandma, Sheng is back." He called her Grandma and Sheng. Chapter 410. Family ties. Before the Spring Festival, Qin Ran had called the old lady and told her that she would bring a special gift to Shanghai on the 3rd day of the Spring Festival. At that time, the old lady didn't take it seriously and thought it was just an ordinary gift. After all, her granddaughter often bought her many things. Although the old lady didn't lack anything and often told the kids not to buy random things, it was the children's good intentions. The kids always said, "Grandma, you've loved us for most of our lives. Now that we've grown up, it's time for us to show our filial piety to you." The old lady was very happy to hear that and couldn't refuse. However, the old lady didn't expect that the special gift would be her favorite grandson, whom she had missed day and night for more than 20 years. The old lady didn't take it seriously, but her daughter's family kept it in mind. Because the old lady's family was in Shanghai, and old Master Zhu had also worked in Shanghai in the past, she introduced a local friend to her younger daughter. Unexpectedly, the 2 young people hit it off, so they got married and had children, and from then on, they took root in Shanghai. The parents of the young son-in-law had passed away, and the old lady lived alone in Shanghai. Therefore, the whole family of the young daughter came to Shanghai during the Spring Festival, except for the eldest son who was on duty in Xinjiang. On the Spring Festival Eve, the Sihiyuan and the old foreign-style house had a video chat. Although the family was not together, they had a good chat. At that time, Qin Sheng was not there, and Qin Chang'an avoided them on purpose. Qin Ran told the old lady again, "Grandma, wait for a few more days. I'll send the special gift to you." Not until then did people in Shanghai know that Qin Ran had prepared a mysterious gift for the old lady. However, no matter how hard they asked, no one told them. Therefore, they could only wait for Qin Ran to come to Shanghai. So, today they finally saw this special gift. It was not an expensive gift, nor was it anything else, but a young man that they had never expected to see, a child that the Zhu and Qin families had been thinking about for more than 20 years. When Qin Sheng walked over slowly and then knelt down and kowtowed, everyone was surprised. What did he mean? But when Qin Sheng called out in a trembling voice, "Grandma, Sheng is back," everyone instantly understood what was going on. The old lady burst into tears in an instant. She stared at the child kneeling on the ground in front of her in disbelief, her whole body trembling uncontrollably. She had said that the young man looked familiar, but it seemed that she had never seen him before. It did not occur to her that he would be her grandson. The name of the old lady's eldest daughter, who was also Qin Sheng's mother, was Zhu Qinghuan, while the name of the old lady's youngest daughter was Zhu Qingwen, who was the outstanding middle-aged woman standing beside the old lady. Zhu Qingwen didn't care where she had seen him, because she already knew his identity. She just couldn't believe it. She asked absent-mindedly, Ran, is this really Shang-er?" Qin Ran knew that whether it was her grandmother or her aunt, no one dared to believe this fact. After all, her younger brother had been missing for more than 20 years. It was hard for anyone to accept that he had suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Qin Ran nodded and said, "Yes, Auntie, this is Qin Sheng. He is also my New Year's gift to Grandma." When Zhu Qingwen heard Qin Sheng's words, she still had some doubts. However, after seeing Qin Ran's solemn nod, Zhu Qingwen no longer doubted it. She, who had been a little confused at first, instantly lost control of her emotions. She forcibly covered her mouth and exclaimed, "Sheng-er, it's really Sheng-er? Sheng is back." Zhu Qinghuan's exclamation made the old lady even more excited. She trembled and tried to get up. At the same time, she cried bitterly, "Sheng-er, my Sheng, you're finally back. You're finally back. I missed you so much. I've been waiting for you for more than 20 years. You're finally back. I was really afraid that I would never see you again." At this time, Qin Sheng raised his head. His face was already covered with tears. After hearing his grandmother's exclamation, he couldn't stop crying. He quickly moved a few steps forward on his knees, hugged his grandmother, who was trying to get up, and said, "Grandma, sure also missed you. It's all my fault. I'm not filial. I made you wait for so many years. It's all my fault." The old lady also hugged her grandson tightly and cried bitterly, as if she wanted to vent all the feelings that had been accumulated for more than 20 years. The old lady and her favorite grandson recognized each other again after more than 20 years. They hugged each other and cried bitterly. This scene moved everyone present. Those who heard it were sad, and those who saw it shed tears. After all, as the old lady said, she was afraid that she would never see her grandson again. This was familial love. Blood was thicker than water, and it would never fade because of time. The old lady was already more than 90 years old, and her health was not very good. Everyone was afraid that the old lady would be too excited and have an accident, so they hurried to comfort her. Everyone shed silent tears. Even Zhu Qingyuan, who was very calm, couldn't help wiping his tears secretly with his eyes red. Seeing that all the adults were crying, Now also burst into tears. The whole living room was in a mess, but everyone was happy in their hearts. This should be called tears of joy. After a long time, the old lady's mood was finally comforted by everyone. Otherwise, if her mood fluctuated like this, she would definitely have an accident. However, the old lady was still holding Qin Sheng for a long time with tears in her eyes. Zhu Qingwen, who was sitting by the side, held the old lady's hand and said, "Mom, sure, is back. You should be happy. Don't cry yourself to death. Otherwise, Sheng-er will feel guilty." Qin Ran also echoed, "Grandma, my brother is back. He will never leave you again. During this period, he will stay in Shanghai to accompany you. No matter how many words you have to say, you can say them all in one go." Zhu Qingwen's daughter, Zhu Yi, stood behind the old lady and massaged her shoulders. That's right, Grandma. You should pay more attention to your health. You still have a long way to go. At this time, the old lady let out a long sigh and said, I know that you children are doing this for my own good, but I just can't help it. When I think of my grandson suffering so many years outside, I feel so sorry for him. I'm already over 90 years old. My life is complete. My only regret is Sheng-Er. Now, I finally made it to this day. Even if I have to die now, I will be satisfied. At least when I go to the underworld, I can tell your grandfather, Old man, Sheng-Er is back. You can rest assured. As the old lady spoke, tears trickled down her cheeks again. Everyone else's eyes also turned red. They comforted the old lady again. Qin Sheng also said in a hurry, Grandma, don't say such words. You will live a long life. I have been away for more than 20 years and made you worry for more than 20 years. So I have to stay with you for more than 20 years. The old lady finally smiled and said, Okay. I won't say it. I will let Sheng-Er stay with me for another 20 years. Zhu Jiao, who was not far away, saw this scene and let out a long sigh. Grandma's wish was finally fulfilled. This was the second time that he had seen his grandmother so sad. The first time was when his grandfather had passed away. At that time, his grandmother had almost died. Zhu Jiao had no impression of this cousin in front of him. He had only seen his childhood photos. After all, when he was born, his cousin had disappeared. These years, he had often heard his grandmother's nagging, so he was more or less curious. Later, when his mother told him the story of his aunt and cousin, he learned about the past. Every time his grandmother mentioned his cousin and aunt, he would hurry to comfort his grandmother. In fact, Zhu Jiao and the others had already given up. After all, more than 20 years had passed. It was not easy to find a person in such a vast world. Many people thought that this child might have died. Only Qin Ran and Qin Chang'an believed that her brother was still alive. After all, he knew more about the past. The old lady finally stopped crying. She was no longer so emotional. Everyone was talking and laughing, which made the atmosphere less sad. However, the old lady was not willing to let go of Qin Sheng's hand. She kept asking about many things, to which Qin Sheng answered truthfully. Qin Ran added some things to the old lady's explanation. Not until then did the people in the old foreign-style house know that Qin Sheng had been living in Xi'an these years. They also knew that Qin Sheng had been back for more than 2 months, but he had not accepted his identity, which was similar to their feelings of the moment. Ran, I didn't expect you to keep it a secret for so long. It's such a big thing that your uncle didn't inform us in advance, so that we could inform your grandmother. Wasn't he afraid that your grandmother would be too excited and have an accident? I have to talk to him later, Zhu Qingwen said discontentedly. Qin Ran held her aunt's arm and said with a smile, Anne, it's not my fault. He knew it too late. Besides, Qin Sheng observed mourning for my mother for a month and went back to Xi'an before the Spring Festival. So he could only come to Shanghai after the Spring Festival. What a filial child. Sheng-Er has suffered these years. Now that you're finally back, my poor eldest daughter can be completely relieved. Hearing this, the old lady let out a long sigh. This time, she managed to hold back her tears because she knew that if she cried, these children would also be sad. At this time, Zhu Qingwen looked at Qin Sheng and finally spoke out her doubts. Sheng-Er, did I see you somewhere before? Zhu Qingyuan already knew that Qin Sheng graduated from Fudan University. He said with a smile, Aunt, you might have seen Qin Sheng before because he graduated from Fudan University. Oh, Sheng-Er actually studied in Fudan University. Now that you mention it, it's really possible. Zhu Qingwen was surprised. After all, she had been teaching in Fudan University these years. At this time, Qin Sheng replied, Aunt, actually we met before, but not in Fudan University. Then where? Hearing Qin Sheng's words, Zhu Qingwen was very confused. The others also looked at Qin Sheng curiously, waiting for his answer. Qin Sheng said slowly, Aunt, do you still remember Shangshan Ruoshui? The year before last, I was working in Uncle Zhang Shangshan Ruoshui. At that time, Aunt and sister Shui Qingyan came together and we met there. Hearing Qin Sheng's explanation, Zhu Qingwen suddenly remembered and exclaimed, Yes, 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 I remember. It was in Changshan, Ruoshui. That time, Qingyan accompanied me there, and I met Sheng there. Qin Sheng smiled and said nothing. He also did not expect that this middle-aged woman, who was treated politely by Sister Xue Qingyan at that time, turned out to be his aunt. This life was really interesting. Zhu Qingwen then asked, Sheng, what's your relationship with Qingyan? I saw her before the Spring Festival. Chapter 411. Things remain the same, but people have changed. Chapter 410. Things remain the same. Sorry for the long wait, but I will continue to do so if I can keep it up. For anyone, helping someone in the hour of need was more memorable than the icing on the cake. But most people were only willing to do the icing on the cake, and few were willing to help someone in the hour of need. That was because the icing on the cake would definitely be rewarded. Although the reward might be small, helping someone in the hour of need was often a waste of effort. Of course, Qin Sheng liked people who helped him in the hour of need. When he was in Shanghai, he was just an ordinary man. At that time, there were not many people who could really be kind to him, especially those big shots. Of course, Jiang Xianbang was not one of them. Jiang Xianbang chose to help him because of his grandfather. If not for his grandfather, Jiang Xianbang would not have invested in a young man like him. So in the end, only Xue Qingyan was there. A drop of water should be returned with a spring. Qin Sheng thought so when he was not going his way. Now that his identity had completely changed, he still did not change his original thinking. This was the principle of being a man. Annie, before I came back, she was the only one who could make me call her Sister Sheng. She helped me so much, so much. Qin Sheng said sincerely, with a faint smile on his face. Oh, Zhu Qingwen was very surprised. She did not expect Xue Qingyan to have so many stories with Qin Sheng. It seemed that with Xue Qingyan's status, it was impossible for her to have any interaction with Qin Sheng in the past. Even if there was, it would not be heart to heart. Hearing this, Qin Ran was a little dissatisfied. She snorted and said, Brother, do you mean that I'm not good to you? Well, I want to meet Xue Qingyan when I have the chance. Sister, why are you jealous? Didn't I say before I came back? Qin Sheng quickly explained. The others also knew that Qin Ran was deliberately joking, so they all laughed. At this time, the old lady began to stand on Qin Sheng's side. She said angrily, All right, Ran, don't bully your brother. You are the most important sister. Qin Ran was even more dissatisfied. She said coquettishly, Grandma, you can't do this. Your Sheng has just come back, and I've already lost your favor. Even if you have a change of heart, you can't change so quickly. The old lady, however, did not buy it. She replied confidently, I've never changed my mind. You've known since you were young that Sheng is the one I dote on the most, whether it's my grandson or granddaughter. Now he's finally back. I don't know how many hardships and grievances he has suffered outside in the past 20 years. Of course, I have to dote on him more. You've enjoyed so many years of happiness. What's there to complain about? There was nothing wrong with what the old lady had said. Qin Ran didn't know how to respond. The others couldn't help laughing and didn't dare to help. Qin Ran had to admit defeat and said, Grandma is right. We are all enjoying life, but your Sheng is suffering. You should take good care of him. I was wrong. At this time, Zhu Qingwen realized that everyone was busy chatting and hadn't eaten yet. He didn't know whether he should laugh or cry. Mom, I know you love Sheng the most. Can you let your Sheng fill his stomach first? Otherwise, he'll be really hungry later, and you'll feel sorry for him again. Upon hearing this, the old lady exclaimed, Oh, I'm so old and muddled. I forgot that the children haven't eaten yet. Let's go and eat first. Qin Sheng and his small aunt helped the old lady to the dining room. The rest of the people followed behind them. Qin Ran and Zhu Qingyuan arranged for the bodyguards to move the luggage and gifts downstairs. The Qin family still had some gifts for other people, which was another task for Qin Ran in this trip to Shanghai. They arranged for the bodyguards to send the gifts directly to Qin Ran's apartment in Lujiazui, Shanghai. When the dishes were all on the table, the old lady looked at these children with a smile. Finally, everyone was present. She remembered that every year when the whole family reunited, the old lady would think of her long-lost grandson, and then she would feel a little lost. She was really afraid that she couldn't hold on until that day. She was afraid that she would be too ashamed to face the old man and her eldest daughter. Now, God finally let her wish come true. The old lady felt that her life was really complete. Even if God took her away now, she would have no regrets. The old lady looked at the children, and the children also looked at the old lady. On her right was Qin Sheng, who was reluctant to let go. Below her were Qin Ran and Zhu Qingyuan's family, and on her left were her youngest daughter, Zhu Jiao, and Zhu Yi. The old lady said with satisfaction, "Don't just stand there. You must be hungry. Hurry up and eat." The children looked at each other and smiled. They had already discussed it. At this time, they shouted in unison, "Happy New Year to Mom, Grandma, Grandma, Grandma," and everything goes well. The scene of 4 generations living under the same roof was so warm that all families would envy such a scene. The old lady was moved to tears again. She took out a handkerchief to wipe her blurry eyes and said, "Good, good, good. You are all good children." At the old lady's signal, they finally picked up the chopsticks to eat. This was not the best time for reunion. In the evening, when Zhu Qingwen's husband, who was in a high position, and Zhu Yi's husband and children came over, it would be a real reunion. The old lady might be so happy that she would faint at that time. The atmosphere at lunch was very lively. They chatted and joked, revealing each other's shortcomings. The old lady talked about the children's childhood, especially the trouble that Qin Sheng had made in those years. Everyone laughed from ear to ear. After lunch, Zhu Qingwen left first. In the evening, she would come over with her husband and let the children chat with the old lady. The old lady sat Qin Sheng on the sofa in the living room and asked him to tell her how he had lived in the past 20 years. Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he naturally had to satisfy the old lady's request. Among them, only Qin Ran knew about it. Even Zhu Qingyuan didn't know much about it. Therefore, everyone gathered in the living room, eating fruits and snacks, and listening to Qin Sheng's story. Qin Sheng began to tell the story from the time he was taken to Zhongnan Mountains by his grandfather. After the old lady heard about old Master Qin, she said directly, "I will never forgive him in my life." Qin Ran knew that her grandmother had always been angry with the Qin family. Not to mention taking away Qin Sheng's grandfather. Even her father had been bullied over these years. No matter how hard she tried to ease the relationship, she couldn't get her grandmother's forgiveness. However, the thing she admired the most about her father was that he never complained, nor did he hate her grandparents at all. That was because her father had personally said that he didn't protect the Zhu family's daughter well and lost the Zhu family's grandson. Even if the Zhu family wanted to kill him, he wouldn't say a word. However, Qin Ran also knew that the grandson of the Zhu family was also her father's wife and son. In fact, he was more miserable than anyone else, but he was never willing to say it. Speaking of Zhongnan Mountains and the small village, everyone was most interested in the masters who lived in seclusion in Zhongnan Mountains. They didn't expect that Qin Sheng would deal with these people since he was young. They were really curious about Qin Sheng's life. Then Qin Sheng talked about his foster parents' home, how they took care of him, and how they treated him. The old lady couldn't help saying, "Sheng, when I get better, go to Xian with me. I want to thank the Lin family in person for taking care of you for so many years." The others said one after another, "Grandma, you don't have to worry about these things. You just need to take care of yourself. We'll take care of the rest." Qin Sheng wanted to say that he felt sorry for the Lin family, that he was not there when they were in trouble and needed him the most. This was the biggest regret in his life. However, Qin Sheng held back in the end because he didn't need his grandmother to worry about this. As his eldest cousin had said in the car, if the old lady knew something, she might make a big deal out of it. Moreover, Qin Chang'an had already made arrangements for this, so Qin Sheng held back. After talking about what happened in Xi'an, Qin Sheng began to talk about his studies at Fudan University. They all sighed with emotion. They didn't expect that Qin Sheng had been so close to them, especially to his small aunt and Zhu Jiao. Because his small aunt was a professor at Fudan University in Shanghai, and Zhu Jiao also graduated from Fudan University, but he was 2 years younger than Qin Sheng. After talking about his studies at Fudan University, Qin Sheng told the story of the 2 years when his grandfather passed away, and he traveled all over the country, according to his grandfather's last wish. When talking about these stories, Qin Sheng was very excited, as if he had gone back to those 2 years. He had seen different sceneries and customs, met all kinds of interesting people, and of course, all kinds of dangers and so on. Everyone listened attentively, worried about Qin Sheng, and envied him. So did the old lady, who was nervous and distressed. They didn't expect that Qin Sheng's life was so wonderful, which really surprised them. At last, Qin Sheng talked about his work in the past 2 years, from Shanghai to Xiamen, and then to Hangzhou, and how he was finally found by the Qin family. In the beginning, Qin Sheng just brushed it off casually. After all, he didn't want to talk about those past events. In the latter part, he had already discussed it with his sister. Last time, he also told his uncle's family in the same way, and they didn't doubt him. Only the old lady, who had been through too many ups and downs and had seen all kinds of people, knew that her grandson was only saying nice things and deliberately hiding a lot of things. She could see it from her grandson's eyes, as well as the minute changes in his tone and movements. She sighed inexplicably. Of course, she knew that her grandson didn't want her to worry. This child was still so sensible. After talking about these past events, it was already past 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The old lady had a lunch break every day. Because of Qin Sheng, she had been holding on until now. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore and felt a little sleepy. Therefore, Zhu Yi and Qin Ran helped the old lady to go upstairs to have a rest. In the evening, they woke the old lady up when everyone arrived. Zhu Qingyuan said that he would take his wife and children to visit a relative who lived nearby, who was a cousin of his wife. It was estimated that he would come back soon. At this moment, only Qin Sheng and Zhu Jiao were left in the living room. Zhu Jiao was full of curiosity about this cousin of his. He came over happily and said, "Cousin, although I've heard a lot about you, I really didn't expect to meet you." Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Jiao, actually, we've met before. Do you still remember the underground parking lot of Yuerong Manor 2 years ago? At that time, my sister was with you. You were waiting for the elevator, and my friend and I happened to pass by you." After hearing Qin Sheng's words, Zhu Jiao said coldly, "Damn, cousin, it can't be. We had such a thing. Why can't I remember?" Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Of course you can't remember. After all, I was just an ordinary nobody at that time. Of course, I wouldn't attract your attention." Zhu Jiao laughed and said, "Cousin, don't say that. In our Zhu family, I'm not as favored as you. In the future, you still need to take care of me." After hearing this, Qin Sheng knew what kind of character this cousin of his was. He was the kind of person who was familiar with everyone. At this time, Qin Ran and Zhu Yi came down. Qin Sheng stood up and said to them, "Sister, cousin, I want to go out for a walk. After all, this place is very close to where I used to work." Qin Ran slightly frowned and said, "Do you want me to go with you?" Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "No, I happen to meet a friend, and I will definitely be back before 6 o'clock. Qin Ran nodded thoughtfully, and Zhu Yi did not have any objection. Zhu Jiao wanted to go out with Qin Sheng, but Qin Sheng also smiled and declined. Everyone left Qin Sheng alone. After coming out of the old foreign-style house, Qin Sheng rode a public bike at the gate and went along Sinan Road from south to north to Shangshan Ruoshui. Chapter 412. Chapter 411. Why are you smiling? There is only one update today. Although Qin Sheng had stayed in this city for 4.5 years, he really had not taken a good look around the city. The name card of the city was those landmark high-rise buildings, especially in a new city like Shanghai. If someone mentioned it, they would first think of the high-rise buildings in the Pudong New area. But the essence of a city was those hidden streets and alleys in the market, which was the real taste of a city. Qin Sheng was familiar with Sinan Road. He rode the shared bicycle along Sinan Road to the north and arrived not far from Shangshan Ruoshui in a few minutes. Qin Sheng parked the shared bicycle by the roadside and stood under a tree, looking at the place where he stayed when he first arrived in Shanghai. For Qin Sheng, the place that used to be very familiar to him was somewhat strange now. Mizan Yu Fengji and Liu Yuan's group of closest friends had all been tricked into coming to Hangzhou by him. Consequently, there were no old friends here, only enemies. Thinking of those friends who followed him to Hangzhou, Qin Sheng felt sorry for them more or less. He did not know how they were doing now that he had left Hangzhou for more than 2 months. There were cars going in and out of Shangshan Ruoshui occasionally. After all, it was only afternoon. There should not be too many customers. Moreover, he heard from Iz and that the current Shangshan Ruoshui was far less lively than it was in Jiang Xianbang's time, and its prestige was declining. It would not take long for it to become an ordinary clubhouse restaurant. Qin Sheng stayed here for a while and felt bored. He did not meet any acquaintances, such as the manager who did not get along with him, Wang Haichao, who was said to be the deputy general manager now. There were also 2 key figures who cooperated with Yin Chaozong to set up the death trap in Mount Jiahua. One was the person in charge of Shangshan Ruoshui, Han Jingdong, and the other was the youngest son of Boss Yi, Yi Muyang. Qin Sheng remembered these 2 people very clearly. He would take revenge sooner or later. Since he had come to the door of Shangshan Ruoshui, of course, Qin Sheng would think of Jiang Xianbang, who first promoted him. When he last contacted him, it seemed that he was staying in Singapore, and he did not know how he was doing now. Of course, there was also Qing the adopted daughter of Jiang Xianbang. She was a teacher at the Shanghai Conservatory of Music and played the zither very well. Jiang Xianbang didn't know how she was doing now. When Uncle Jiang left, he asked him to take care of her, but he didn't even take care of himself. This place was close to Middle Huaihai Road, so it was not far from Jiang Xianbang's old foreign-style house. The old friend that Qin Sheng wanted to meet was Jiang Xianbang's adopted daughter, Qing. He didn't know if she was still in the old villa during the Spring Festival. Maybe she was not in Shanghai anymore. Maybe she was spending the Spring Festival abroad with Uncle Jiang. However, Qin Sheng did not have Qing's contact information, nor could he remember Uncle Jiang's phone number. After all, there were less than 20 contacts on this phone, so Qin Sheng could only try his luck. After taking a taxi for a few minutes, they arrived at Jiang Xianbang's old foreign-style house. The door was still closed, and Qin Sheng could not tell if there was anyone inside. However, there were couplets pasted on the outside, which made Qin Sheng somewhat relieved. Even if Qing wasn't there, there must be someone staying in the old foreign-style house. That person could contact Qing or Uncle Jiang. Qin Sheng walked to the door slowly, pressed the doorbell, and waited for the door to open. The old foreign-style house was still decorated as before, but the collectibles had been disposed of, leaving only some worthless decorations. At this moment, a woman in a gray hemp cheongsam was sitting on the sofa, reading a book quietly. The woman's hair was tied up casually, which was a little messy. There was a small stove beside her, on which there was an old iron kettle, which was used to boil tea. The kettle was made by a famous craftsman and was collected by Jiang Xianbang years ago. However, it was not put on the shelf, but directly used to boil tea. In front of the woman in the gray hemp cheongsam was a Chinese zither, on which there was an open music score. It seemed that she had just finished playing a new song. The sunlight shone on the woman through the window, and the smoke curled up from the kitchen chimney, which made her look special. However, such a woman was a little out of place in the atmosphere of Shanghai. Hearing the doorbell, the woman frowned slightly, put down the book, and said in a low voice, "Uncle Wang, see who's here. If it's Liang Chun, tell him I'm not here." Uncle Wang was the housekeeper of this old foreign-style house. Even though Jiang Xianbang was not in Shanghai, Uncle Wang had been staying here all the time, taking care of Qing, who was unwilling to go to Hong Kong. Uncle Wang turned on the surveillance video at the door. From the video, he found Qin Sheng somewhat familiar. After all, Qin Sheng had been to the old foreign-style house several times. However, Uncle Wang's memory was not good, so he could not recall it. After all, Qin Sheng had not been here for so long. However, he knew that Qin Sheng must be here for Jiang Xianbang. After all, Many people did not know whether Jiang Xianbang had come back or not. Some old friends came here to try their luck and, at the same time, to inquire about the news. Uncle Wang walked out at a moderate pace, then opened the small door. He stared at Qin Sheng for a while and asked calmly, "Who are you looking for?" When a small door was opened, Qin Sheng was finally relieved. At least the door was not closed. As long as someone was here, he could contact Qing, or Uncle Jiang. Seeing that it was the housekeeper of the old foreign-style house, Qin Sheng said with a smile, "Uncle Wang, don't you remember me? I'm Qin Sheng. The year before last, I often came to see Uncle Jiang. When Uncle Jiang left Shanghai, he asked me to take care of Qing." Being reminded by Qin Sheng, Uncle Wang remembered instantly. He said in a hurry, Oh, I remember. You're Qin Sheng. I was wondering why you looked so familiar. But you're here for old Jiang, right? He is still abroad." Qin Sheng said with a faint smile, "I know he is still abroad. Today, I'm here for Qing Er. I haven't been back to Shanghai for a long time. I don't know how Qing is doing now. Uncle Jiang asked me to take care of her, but I left Shanghai because of some trifles. I didn't fulfill my responsibility. This time, I came back to Shanghai, so I came here to take a look. Uncle Wang, is Qing Er there? Or did she go abroad to accompany Uncle Jiang?" Hearing this, Uncle Wang said in a hurry, Yes, Qing Er is here. I'll take you to see her now. She is so stubborn. She insisted on staying in Shanghai to accompany me. She also said that this is her home. How could there be no one at home during the Spring Festival?" Hearing Uncle Wang's words, Qin Sheng was surprised. Originally, he came to try his luck today. He didn't expect his luck to be so good. It seemed that after returning to Beijing, his luck was getting better and better. Therefore, Uncle Wang asked Qin Sheng to come in quickly. Then, he led Qin Sheng into the house. The woman in the gray hemp cheongsam was naturally Qing Er. Qing had heard the footsteps outside and was curious about who was coming. At this time, Qin Sheng and Uncle Wang walked in. Uncle Wang said excitedly, "Girl, look who's here." Qing Er looked in the direction of the door. When she saw Qin Sheng behind Uncle Wang, she was directly stunned. The book in her hand fell to the ground subconsciously. She didn't expect it to be Qin Sheng. Meeting an old friend again, she was speechless for a moment. Qin Sheng walked slowly to Qing Er and said with a faint smile, "Qing Er, long time no see. How are you?" Qing Er asked absent-mindedly, "How come it's you? Why are you here?" Uncle Wang nodded at Qin Sheng and left sensibly. "You guys talk first. I'll go upstairs to pack my things." Then, he left with a smile. Qin Sheng stood in front of Qing Er and looked at this old friend whom he had not seen for more than a year. She seemed to be more extraordinary and refined than before. Of course, she was also more beautiful, just that she was less worldly. "I didn't expect to see you here. I thought you and Uncle Jiang were abroad for the new year. Unfortunately, I changed my phone and lost your contact with Uncle Jiang. After returning to Shanghai today, I could only try my luck," Qin Sheng explained with a smile. Although Qing Er was very surprised to see Qin Sheng, she didn't have a good impression of Qin Sheng at the beginning. They always bickered when they were together. Qing Er looked down on Qin Sheng's wanton and unruly behavior, and Qin Sheng never spoiled Qing Er's coldness. "What's the matter?" Qing Er asked with a frown. Uncle Jiang had told her to discuss with Qin Sheng if there was anything. However, when she really had something to do, she couldn't contact Qin Sheng no matter how hard she tried. This made Qing even more dissatisfied with Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Anyway, we're friends. It's not good for you to be so serious. Let me sit down first. At least let me have a cup of tea." Qing said casually, "Oh, then sit down." Qin Sheng sat on the sofa next to Qing Er. Qing Er poured him a cup of tea. Qin Sheng took it and thanked her softly. Then he looked up at Qing Er and said, "We haven't seen each other for more than a year. How are you? Whether it's good or bad, what does that have to do with you? Now can you tell me what's the matter? If you're just here to catch up, I think we have nothing to talk about." Qing Er's attitude was still so cold. Now Qin Sheng only cared about his family and friends. He treated Qing Er as a friend, but it seemed that Qing didn't treat him as a friend. This made Qin Sheng very uncomfortable. Of course, he would not spoil her. So Qin Sheng stopped smiling and said, "Of course I'm not here for you. I just lost Uncle John's contact number. I want to call him and talk about something." "What is it?" Qing didn't intend to give Qin Sheng Uncle John's number. Qin Sheng said slowly, "For example, how to let him go back to China." "What? You have a way to let Uncle John come back? Is it true?" Qing heard the news and stood up excitedly. She stared at Qin Sheng and asked with a stunned face. Qin Sheng didn't expect that Qing would have such a big reaction. He sighed on purpose and said, "Originally, I wanted to talk to you about it after meeting my old friend. I didn't expect that you would be so cold to me. It seems that I'm asking for trouble. Sorry to bother you." After that, Qin Sheng put down the teacup and was ready to leave. Qing was a little anxious. She couldn't help but regret her indifference to Qin Sheng just now. She directly grabbed Qin Sheng and said, "Qin Sheng, I'm sorry. It's my fault. I apologize to you. Do you really have a way to let Uncle Jiang come back?" Qin Sheng still snorted and said, "You don't need to know that. Qin Sheng, I'm sorry. I'm really wrong. Just tell me." Qing wouldn't let Qin Sheng go. Although she didn't know whether what Qin Sheng said was true or not, she had to try. Qin Sheng turned his head and stared at Qing with a smile. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes." Qin Sheng nodded heavily. Qin Sheng stared at Qing with some bad intentions. Qing couldn't help but take 2 steps back. She was afraid that Qin Sheng would have some bad ideas. Qin Sheng said, then smiled. Chapter 413. Wait for my news. Qin Sheng was not a bad person, and he had never offended Qing. Why was she so cold to him and kept her distance from him? When Qin Sheng came to the old foreign-style house for the first time, he teased Jiang Xianbang about Qing, saying that Jiang Xianbang had a mistress in his house. Qing happened to hear it. After listening to Jiang Xianbang's explanation, Qin Sheng found out that Qing was just the daughter of an old friend of his who had passed away. She could be considered as his half-daughter. He also apologized to Qing, but Qing did not forgive him and directly regarded him as a playboy. Qin Sheng had challenged Qing's bottom line. She hated it when people talked about Uncle Jiang like that. Although Uncle Jiang had many women, he really treated her like his own daughter and didn't have any evil intentions. Therefore, Qing had been disgusted with Qin Sheng since then. Every time they met, they would quarrel. She knew that Uncle Jiang wanted to match her with Qin Sheng, but she would never fall in love with a man like Qin Sheng. Therefore, when she saw Qin Sheng again after a year and a half, Qing was a little surprised at first. After she came to her senses, she returned to her original attitude and ignored Qin Sheng. However, when Qin Sheng told her that he had a way to bring Uncle Jiang back, Qing's attitude changed immediately. However, Qin Sheng was wronged and wanted to leave, so Qing had to beg for mercy. To her, she was willing to do anything as long as Uncle Jiang could come back and stop him from wandering alone in the outside world. But at this moment, Qing didn't expect that Qin Sheng would make such an unreasonable request. She didn't know how to respond. "You're being unreasonable." Qing stared at Qin Sheng angrily after she came to her senses. Qin Sheng shrugged and said, "Oh, then I'll leave first. I'm sorry to disturb you from drinking tea, reading books, and playing the piano. Bye." Then Qin Sheng turned around and was ready to leave again. He wanted to see whether Qing would lower her head and apologize to him. He didn't believe that he couldn't cure this beauty's bad habit. Qing grabbed Qin Sheng's arm again and said, "Qin Sheng, as long as you can bring Uncle Jiang back, I'll do anything you want. But can you change your request?" Qin Sheng squinted at the lovely Qing. She was indeed the kind of goddess that every man dreamed of. He said playfully, "You'll do anything?" Qing nodded without hesitation. Her eyes were firm. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "Okay, then you can be my lover." His words stunned Qing again. She did not expect that Qin Sheng's demands were getting more and more excessive. Being bullied by Qin Sheng, Qing finally could not stand it anymore. Biting her lower lip, her eyes started to turn red and tears gradually formed in her eyes. Without Uncle John's protection, she realized how helpless she was and how she was always bullied. This time, it was Qin Sheng's turn to panic. He couldn't help but feel that this joke had gone too far. He really had to give in to this woman. She asked him to laugh and make him her lover. What was she thinking? He had no choice but to admit defeat and say, "Grand Aunt, it's my fault. I was just joking with you. I originally came to see you, my old friend. Who asked you to be so cold to me, as if I owe you a few $100 million?" Qin Sheng really did not dare to provoke this beauty. If Uncle Jiang found out later, he could not guarantee that he would chase him all over the street with a kitchen knife. Qing did not stop there. Her delicate hands had already been clenched into fists, and her tears flowed down and dripped on the floor. Thinking of Uncle Jiang's love and devotion to her over the years, and how much she had suffered during the year when she met Uncle Jiang in Hong Kong, he seemed to have aged a lot. Qing couldn't bear it anymore, so she said with a trembling voice, "As long as you can make Uncle Jiang come back, I'll promise you." Of course, Qing knew that Qin Sheng was only joking when he asked her to laugh, but the latter part might be half true. Qin Sheng was completely confused. What was going on? He really wanted to slap himself. Why did he make such a joke? Didn't he know that she used to treat him like this? What should he do now? I was really joking. I didn't mean that. Even without you, I will find a way to make Uncle Jiang come back. After all, he did me a favor. Qin Sheng replied again. He almost knelt on the ground and begged this grand aunt to stop crying. She was just an ordinary woman. As long as she could repay Uncle John's kindness, it was nothing. So she thought that Qin Sheng did not believe her. She said again, "As long as you can make Uncle Jiang come back, I will keep my promise. It has nothing to do with Uncle Jiang." Damn it. Qin Sheng directly burst out a curse. It was getting more and more confusing. Qin Sheng simply did not want to talk nonsense anymore. Otherwise, with this woman's stubborn character, no matter how much he said, it would be useless. He could only do it perfunctorily for now, and then directly forget about it. Okay. Whatever you say, I believe you, okay? So are you going to listen to me now? Qin Sheng said helplessly. Qing nodded and said, "Okay, then don't cry anymore. Wipe your tears and smile, or I will really leave." Qin Sheng said firmly. It seemed that if Qing did not agree, he would immediately turn around and leave without any hesitation. Qing gently wiped the tears on her face, took a few deep breaths to adjust herself, and then looked at Qin Sheng with a not-so-perfect smile. She was not smiling for Qin Sheng, but she was smiling from the bottom of her heart, thinking that she could make Uncle Jiang come back. She was like a pear blossom in tears just now, but now she was as beautiful as a flower. This difference made Qin Sheng a little stunned. After all, Qing was really beautiful when she smiled. A woman's smile and tears are the most threatening weapons to men. Yeah, you're the most beautiful when you smile. Qin Sheng laughed. Qing glared at Qin Sheng, but she did not dare to be so cold to him anymore. She looked at Qin Sheng with a perfunctory smile, but in her heart, she still despised Qin Sheng. He was no different from those dirty men who wanted to get her. Okay, now can you let me sit down and we can have a good talk? Finally, this matter was over. Qin Sheng sighed and said he was really tired. Qing nodded. After Qin Sheng sat down, she poured a cup of tea for him again. She looked at Qin Sheng expectantly, waiting for his explanation. Qin Sheng picked up the teacup and said thoughtfully, "When Uncle Jiang left, he asked me to take care of you, but I didn't do my duty. I have to apologize to you, because at that time, something happened to me. I left Shanghai in a mess and almost lost my life. I was lying in bed for a few months, so I hope you can understand that I was really helpless." After Qin Sheng finished his explanation, Qing Er's face changed slightly. She had a complicated look in her eyes. She did not expect so many things to happen to Qin Sheng. She was really angry when she could not get in touch with Qin Sheng. Qing said lightly, "Okay, I know. It's not your fault. In the past year, I have been through a lot. I have been through ups and downs. Until today, I finally have the strength to come back to Shanghai. I always remember what happened to Uncle Jiang, but I didn't have the ability before. Seeing that he is still wandering outside at such an old age, I feel very sad. Now that I have some ability, I want to give it a try. As for whether I can really make him come back, I can't guarantee it. I can only say that I will try my best. Qin Sheng said very seriously. This time, he was not joking at all. Seeing Qin Sheng's serious look, Qing felt a little disappointed, but she could understand. After all, Uncle John's matter was so serious. It had only been more than a year. How capable could Qin Sheng be? Then what can I do for you? Qing said softly. Even if Uncle Jiang could not come back in the end, she still had to give it a try. How would she know if she did not try? Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, you can call Uncle Jiang now. I don't know the specific situation. I have to figure out what is going on first, then I can take the right medicine. Okay. Qing nodded. Then she found her phone, walked aside, and dialed Uncle Jiang's number in Sydney. He had been living there recently. Qin Sheng did not follow her. He knew that Qing must have something to explain, so he just quietly drank tea and waited. In front of the floor-to-ceiling window, Qing looked serious for a while, and then she cried and laughed. It seemed that she had endless things to say to Uncle Jiang. Of course, the most important thing was to explain Qin Sheng. A few minutes later, Qing slowly walked over with her phone. She handed it to Qin Sheng and said, "Here you are. Tell Uncle Jiang." Qin Sheng took the phone and teased him with a smile. "Uncle Jiang, were you having fun recently?" Jiang Xianbang snorted and said, "You are not dead yet. I was going to sacrifice you in Australia. I heard about what happened to you in Hangzhou. You are really an unkillable cockroach. You offended so many people, but you still managed to escape alive. I really have a whole new level of respect for you." Jiang Xianbang and Qin Sheng got along like this. They did not exchange greetings, but only made fun of each other. But Jiang Xianbang was really surprised that Qin Sheng could come back to Shanghai and go to the old foreign-style house. Moreover, Qin Sheng wanted to find a way to bring him back. He really did not know what this guy had experienced after disappearing for a few months. Good people don't live long, but scourges live for thousands of years. Scourges like me, of course, can't die. Qin Sheng laughed happily. Jiang Xianbang did not talk nonsense anymore. He asked directly, "Where have you been these months? How did you deal with the things in Hangzhou? Otherwise, you would not have dared to come back to Shanghai openly. This is a slap in the face to the Yin family. Maybe you would have to come back standing up and leave lying down." Qin Sheng scolded angrily. "F***CKU. Can't you hope for something good from me?" "Ha. Okay. Tell me about it first." Jiang Xianbang laughed out loud. From the beginning to the end, he believed that Qin Sheng would definitely be outstanding. This was not because he believed in Qin Sheng, but because he recognized the old man. Qin Sheng explained slowly, "The things in Hangzhou have not been solved. I have been in Beijing during this time. As for why I dare to come back, I don't need to explain. Anyway, I'm not tired of living. You only need to know that it is not that they can't find trouble with me, but that I can't find trouble with them." After listening to Qin Sheng's words, Jiang Xianbang was shocked. He did not know whether Qin Sheng was bragging or he really had this confidence. Qin Sheng knew that Jiang Xianbang must be dubious, so he did not dwell on this topic. Instead, he continued, "Let's not talk about these things. You will know in the future. Let's talk about something serious. I think Qing has told you." "Yes, but do you know how big my problem is? You dare to help me? Even if you have a big shot behind you, they may not get involved in this." Jiang Xianbang squinted and said, he had been in such a situation, but in the end, he had to pack up and run away. How capable could Qin Sheng be? Qin Sheng said meaningfully, "Then you have to tell me first. Then I will know whether I have this ability or not, right?" "Okay, then I will tell you in detail." Jiang Xianbang sighed and took it seriously. After all, he had to try. Who would know if he did not try? Therefore, in the next half an hour, Jiang Xianbang told Qin Sheng in detail all the inside stories about his problem, how many people and things were involved, how many key points, and so on. Qin Sheng just listened quietly and occasionally asked about the things he did not understand. Qing kept pouring tea for Qin Sheng, and then looked at Qin Sheng, who was extremely serious. It seemed that this man was not as bad as she thought. When Jiang Xianbang finished telling him everything, Qin Sheng's face was very cold. It was as complicated as he had expected, and the people involved were really not ordinary. This also made Qin Sheng understand why Jiang Xianbang could reach this position. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.